Hey kids, it's time to get some SML Podcast all up in that.
I'm gonna disconnect if the sound and mic is okay, and I'll be back in 2 minutes, okay?
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay, see you in a second then.
And it's over. That was a fun interview. What's up, everyone? This is the SML Podcast. I am your host, Joe. Later on in the show, we're going to be talking with Rafał Basaj of Bloober team about the game Observer. That's going to be a fun chat. Before then, we have our usual reviews to get to, and kicking off the show this week, good friend Tim Ekkebus. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. Thank you for asking.
I'm getting a sense of deja vu with this.
Yeah, I don't know why. Can't say.
Anyway, first off, happy birthday. How was your birthday?
Hey, thank you. My birthday was good. I sat around and played games all day, which is about the kind of party you're looking for when you're hitting upper 30s.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
What'd you play?
I played some Hellblade.
Ooh.
I played a lot of Hearthstone. An expansion came out last week, so sue me. Some Overwatch, and a game called Phantom Trigger I played some of.
Oh, look at you with the segues. It's like you've done podcasts before.
Yeah, it's weird. I have some experience in the field, though you wouldn't know it.
Shocking. So, yeah, first game to talk about this week is called Phantom Trigger, developed by Bread Team, published by tinyBuild. It released August 10th on the Nintendo Switch and Steam for $14.99. Stan is losing control. The Phantom Realm brings arcane hexes into a pulsing neon reality where demons fight in packs and use every trick they have to break your defense. Throw spells and traps mid-combo, ride the edge of control and chaos in this fresh take on action combat. You are your own worst enemy in Phantom Trigger. Tim, normally this is the part where I would say, tell me about the game, but we got to get this out of the way first. There has been a lot of comparisons between this and a little indie called Hyper Light Drifter. Tell me, what is the difference?
Oh, there's none. They're the same game. That's it. Review. Bye. No, okay. Yeah, so anybody who looks at Phantom Trigger, myself included, and is familiar with Hyper Light Drifter, probably said, hey, this game kind of looks like Hyper Light Drifter.
And the funny thing is, there's another one coming out in September called Songbringer, which looks similar again with the pixelated style, Zelda-ish action adventure RPG. Is this like a new genre in the making?
Maybe. I mean, yeah, it's people who came of age with early Super Nintendo / Genesis games kind of coming of age and making their video games. So you see a lot of your Metroidvanias, and yeah, now some kind of Zelda likes trying to capture that feeling in a bottle, as it were. But yeah, it is a little bit superficial, but it's also kind of not. Like if you look at this game, like you have your pixel art style, you have your main character with a his sword, his dash attack. He has like a little bit of like a scarf behind him billowing in the wind. It's this kind of weird fantasy world where you don't exactly know what's going on. They're both thematically related to personal illness, oddly enough, as well. That's kind of what really gets me, is that that's kind of what they're centered around.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still it's in that vein, as I described it to you, after I'd played it for maybe a half hour, is that this game feels like the Genesis adaptation of Hyper Light Drifter, harkening back to when you'd have two different games, like the same game, the same IP would be released on both Super Nintendo and Genesis, but you had like maybe not wildly, but different takes on each console. Like the Jurassic Park games are different. The Aladdin games are different. You had Rocket Knight Adventures. You had Sparkster.
Mortal Kombat 1.
Yeah.
Kind of.
A little different. Kind of, sort of. But, yeah, so it kind of is like that. But it does feel like kind of the Genesis game to Hyper Light Drifter's Super Nintendo edition, and that like something about Phantom Trigger is just kind of like grungier and grittier, and just feels more like Genesis-y. Like the character models are bigger, and such. But in actually playing the game, it is a top-down action exploration game. Unlike Hyper Light Drifter, this game is level based, so you kind of go into a world, you explore, you get to the exit, and then you pop back out to this hub world, and then kind of fart around there for a few minutes, then back out to another world thereafter.
So it feels more structured instead of just like explore and do whatever. Yeah, it's more straightforward actiony than explory. Though there is secrets to find in the levels. Like there's these whatchamacallit, these like statues that will give you like bonus experience, which is a nice segue into the combat system.
Into the combat system. So you have your sword. You also have a brain. You have your brains.
Whip.
No, you have a whip and
a punchy fist.
Yeah, you get some punchy fists, like some claws, some fiery looking claws. And as you use the weapons, you gain experience to level them up, and as you level them up, you will unlock more combos. So some combos might need like 2 things to be level 6 and 1 thing to be level 5. Another might just need 2 to be like level 2. After I'm somewhere in the 3rd world at the moment, and I'll get to that in a second. I have a good number of the combos unlocked, and it shows you on your status screen like what levels you need to unlock them, which is nice. So you're not just sitting there like guessing, like, oh, if I use this a bunch, am I gonna get something? No. No, okay.
Some of those combos are like crazy useful as well. I put a little bit of time into the Switch version of this, and the one that freezes your enemies. Oh my god, I abuse the shit out of that.
Yeah, that's the one right there. That / freeze.
Yep.
That is hyper important because that freeze comes out fast. A lot of the other like combo ender attacks don't come out very fast. Which makes them troublesome to use, but that freeze is just like boom, and then it stuns them, and that's perfect. That's exactly what you want.
It's OP.
It is a little OP, and it's one of the first things you get too, which is nice. But the whip is also cool. It's just a utility. It doesn't like do damage that I can see. It just kind of yoinks things towards you and lets you whip things around the environment to do damage, as it were. So it's fun because that is a big difference in that this game has 3 different melee weapons at your fingertips. You're not switching between them. They are each assigned to a button.
Which makes it really easy to do combos because everything is all the 4 face buttons, and it's easy to just punch, and then whatever else. And I'm great with my fighting game terminology. Can you tell?
Yeah. Popping out on combos.
We need wood on this one.
getting some pokes and such. But yeah, so that's kind of the basics of the game. So an issue I ran into that no one else will run into is that during kind of the review period, the controller support didn't work on a computer. It only worked via Steam Link for some reason. Even if I tried putting Steam into big picture mode to trick the game, it still wouldn't do it. But now it's after the day 1 patch, it's just there in the game and it's fine.
The beauty of pre-release reviews, huh?
Yeah, that's kind of like, and it was fun because there was a message that said like, oh, this game needs like a Steam controller profile in order to work, and it's not meant for controllers. And then I'm like, wait, this literally says LB and RB in the menus. It literally is showing me the buttons in the combo menu. Like this is nonsense. But yeah, and I also got held up on the second boss, which was a huge pain in the ass and did not really make any sense to me when I walked into the room. It took me like watching a YouTube video and then playing it back a few times to see exactly what was causing damage to the boss. in order to make it work. Like the first boss I thought was super intuitive. I was like, okay, I bet you anything he's going to spit out things that I'm going to have to whip at him. And yes, perfect. That's exactly what happened. And then the second boss, I was like, okay.
What the fuck do I do?
Okay. Okay. And then, yeah, eventually I was able to kind of figure out some strats and grind it out.
You YouTubed some strats.
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't even do that. I just kind of figured out what I needed to do. So that did work out, but that did hold me up pretty badly. I don't think it's very apparent exactly what you need to do on that particular fight. So don't feel bad if you need to look it up yourself.
So do you think that's an issue that like if the developers get some feedback, they could tweak the battle easily enough?
Yeah, I think so. Like I can see why. Like there's, so basically what's going on is you have to kill enemies in a certain spot in the boss room, and then they charge up these pillars in the corner, and then once they're charged enough, they will do damage to the boss when it passes through them. But man, it is just tough to see that going on, because I'm sitting there like trying to figure out how to damage the boss. Do I have to like whip these guys into it? Do I have to create ice cubes for some reason? And it's just like, no, it's just not working out. It doesn't make sense. And then like, yeah, after watching the video, I'm like, okay, it's happening when the things hit the corner. Okay, he's killing the enemies in the corner of the room. That's what that little semicircle means. I got it. Now I just have to figure out how to actually make it happen, which was its own freaking thing. So that was rough, and that definitely held me up. But I did enjoy my time with the game. I don't think the combat is quite as tight as Hyper Light Drifter, not to keep bringing that game up, but there was like sometimes I just didn't get a good sense of, like, I would miss an enemy when I thought I was going to hit them, just because like maybe they would be a little bit too far below where my character was. Like imagine, like in Final Fight when you failed to hit something, that's kind of what it would equate to. Yeah,
I ran into that myself. Those little slime dudes that jump and do like the little ground pound thing. Yeah. Fuck those things.
Yeah.
So I guess,
oh my god, those things are so annoying.
Seriously,
you have such a small window to get in there and like do damage where they just jump up and hit you again,
and they hit you for so much too.
Yeah, they're a pain in the dick.
Fucking dick slimes.
Pain in the dick.
Oh, so I guess the big question: $15. What are your thoughts on this one?
I think that's a solid price for it. That's a good price. 20 would probably be too much. 10 would be too little. I do think that's a thing that exists. But yeah, that seems like a fine price to pick it up, and it's on the Switch, which is probably a great place to play it.
Indeed. Plays really well on the Switch. I enjoyed it. If you're a Steam guy, let's see, it's on sale until the 17th, so by the time you're hearing this, you got about 2 days. It's down to $12 on Steam. Or if you do the full 15, you get a soundtrack with it. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. It does have some nice... It's got some nice moody sound to it that I like. The game does have like a cool vibe, weird, mysterious vibe to it, like overall, I would say. Because, like the story is weird. Like there's this dude who's clearly having some health issues, but you're in this world with like anthropomorphic animals that talk to you in kind of non sequitur sometimes. And a tree. There's a tree that talks to you and gives you a sword.
Which all trees do. I mean,
yeah.
That's where I got my first sword.
That's why you go into the woods, to get a sword and to find porn that someone left there, right?
The old man shack that has like the porn and like 3-year-old beer sitting in a cooler.
Yeah.
Childhood.
Yeah. Childhood in the Northeast. Yeah. All right, but yeah, that's Phantom Trigger, yo. You should probably get that on your radar to check out, especially if you're a Switch owner.
Indeed. The more Switch, the better. I'm so happy every time a new Switch game comes along that we get to cover on this show. And I'm pretty sure Norg's going to be along later on in the show to talk about some other Switch stuff. So if you're interested, you could drop by and listen to that one when the episode is up.
What did Norg play?
Slime San.
Oh, I haven't heard of that.
It is also on Steam, and then it just released on the Switch. And then he's also covering Ironcast, but I don't know if that'll be this episode or not. The beauty of recording things separately.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, thank you so much for covering Phantom Trigger for us. Always good having you on the show. I'm glad you had a fun birthday. Any final words to sum things up?
You know, the Super Nintendo version's better, but the Genesis version ain't bad.
All right, next up we have 2 PC games to talk about, and joining us to chat about those is our good friend Ian Griffin, a.k.a. Jesus. Ian, how are you doing today?
I'm not doing that bad. I'm enjoying the weather. Nice, lovely summer weather.
How is the weather? You're up in New York, right?
Yep. The weather's been pretty decent today. Tomorrow, it could be just as decent. It could be even better. It could be dawn of the apocalypse.
Hey, that perfectly describes the weather in 2017. It's as volatile as our current state of politics.
Oh, God.
But we've got 2 games to chat about with you today, and the first one is called Dark and Light, developed and published by Snail Games USA, released July 20th on Steam Early Access for $29.99, planned to be in Early Access for about a year, give or take, depending on, things. The shattered remains of the mother planet Gaia float in stark contrast against the sky on a nearby satellite planet Arcos, serving as inescapable evidence of the dark forces surrounding the world. As a lone explorer in the wilderness, you must learn to understand the terrain, natural resources, as well as how to domesticate the local creatures and build a home. You will need to harness and control the magical energy that courses through the planet, or you risk being consumed by the looming darkness that permeates the planet. See, when you're sick, you could do that voice, and it sounds intimidating. So, Ian, what'd you think of Dark and Light?
Well, I thought it was very much enjoyable. You mentioned that it was produced by Snail Games. A few years back, they actually acquired Studio Wildcard, the developers of Ark. So for all the gamers out there that may be familiar with Ark, you'll find a lot of common carryovers in Dark and Light. But Dark and Light does have enough variation in its mechanics and systems to kind of make it its own game. It's more of like the foundation, it's just basically a ground up starting point. For example, there's a magic system that's in place, and part of the whole leveling up is trying to figure out what stats you want, what kind of character you want to make. Do you want to make them like a warrior type of person? Do you want to make them a magic using type of person? Do you want a little bit of both, jack of all trades? But yeah, I mean, all in all, it's kind of like a high magic medieval fantasy sandbox survival, and you have to watch your basic things, your food, your drink, and like I said, there's actually kind of like a mana gauge, and you can create your own houses, you can create guilds with other players and stuff. I mean, it is entirely possible that you can. There is like a single player campaign of sorts that pretty much teaches you the ropes of how to play the game through in-game quests and stuff like that. But you can ignore that and just do your own thing. Let's see here. Yeah, so I don't want to say unlike other survival games, but if this is your first foray into the sandbox survival, I mean, the learning curve is nice enough and forgiving enough that you can learn how the core mechanics work. If you've played Ark or Conan Exiles or any games like that, it should take you no time whatsoever to really familiarize yourself. But in case you're completely new, it does ease you in pretty well. I mean, it tells you, how to gather stuff, how to make basic things, how to unlock recipes for more advanced tools, weaponry, and stuff like that. So it's not as intimidating as some of the more intense survival games may be. And another thing that some people might notice is that the crafting system is not level dependent. And some of the other games, like for example, you can't unlock certain building materials until you're this level. The crafting system in this game is, it pretty much rewards the specific work you put into it. I mean, and it'll also tell you exactly how to level certain things. So if you're getting tired of making, hobo shacks out of straw and you want to start making stuff out of stone, it'll tell you what you need to do in order to level up the appropriate skills. It's very user friendly. It is also in early access, so there are bugs, there are glitches. I think one of the starting tutorials kind of gets locked in place. Like, I think it tells you to, like, I think what I'm trying to think of where it's caught at. I want to say it's like you have to reach level 4 before you can continue on.
No, like they're gated off?
No. Like once, I mean, that is the cool thing about the crafting system. It's like I said, it's not level gated. So, if you want to go totally into magic, you go to the appropriate menu where it shows all your skills and stuff like that, and you're like, okay, well, air magic, what do I need to do for that? And it'll tell you. It'll give you the requirements. Like, you need to farm this until, the gauge is full, and then you'll get that level of, skill. If you don't give a flying rat's ass about cooking food, you don't really have to, go around, hunt everything under the sun and try to come up with 502 recipes to level it. I mean, you can get by on the basic stuff that you learn early game. So there is like a nice level of customizing that you can get into. I mean, if you really want to put in the time and effort, you can learn it all. If you don't, well, screw it. You don't have to.
It's kind of like that with all these survival games, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, some of them are a little, well, I don't want to say generic, but some of them are, usually the older ones are level gated, and you just have to sit there and do something. It doesn't really matter what, as long as you're building or killing something or farming something or harvesting something, you'll eventually get the experience to level up and acquire that tier of stuff. But there might be stuff that you're not interested in. So, in this case, you can really focus on whatever, gameplay experience you're really looking forward to.
Yeah.
And despite it being early access and bugs and glitches, the developers do seem to be rather on the ball. I'm trying to think, since you asked me to play the game, since you gave me the code and I installed it, there's probably been maybe, 4 hotfixes and or updates since then. So, they're
busy. They're working. They're listening.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot on their plate, but, as you can imagine, the forums are very vocal about things that are derped. And, the devs are trying to take it all in stride. I mean, it is a pretty big game, and it is a pretty, like I said, it's a matter of priorities. So they're eventually trying to get around to it and working on it, and they're trying to take care of the biggest issues first, especially the ones that are borderline game breaking.
Do you know if they plan on increasing the price when it leaves early access? I would imagine they are, considering look what happened with Ark. Well,
it's really too early to say, because I mean, it just came out like a couple weeks ago, like two weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. I mean, I don't even think it's been out for a month yet. So, theorizing about release prices a little early in the game. But, with the controversy over Ark and its doubled price in order to, quote, match the parity of the console release, anything's possible. Yeah. But, yeah. And as I've mentioned, to get into other aspects of the game itself, like, does it look good? Well, as I've said off cast, I didn't find out until it was far too late that my video card is a wee bit subpar to recommended. I could still play it, and even at like the lowest settings that still make my video card cry in a corner, it still looks pretty decent.
I mean, you're talking to the king of bad computers here. So, like, I recently got a new video card and some extra RAM for my computer, so it's not as Stone Age as it used to be. The processor is still, like, I don't know, 7 years old, so I'm sure that needs some help. But when I started it up, because I was going to give the game a try myself to give some opinions, I went through the character creation, then it was like, you know, we're going to get you into a server, and then it went to the screen of, like, the dragon flying for about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I just, at that point, I gave up, walked away, and started watching TV. And then randomly, I heard some kind of change on my computer, came back, and it started up, and it was so bad on my computer because my computer is just ass. Yeah. That's why I don't review PC games, kids. That's why I bring my friends in to do that stuff.
Yeah, because I'm like, my processor is decent enough to run it. It's just my video card is the one that's starting to fall behind the technology curve. But yeah, I think if memory serves, you mentioned your video card before. I think if you updated your processor, you'd probably be able to run it fine.
Maybe,
I did
too much other shit to worry about right now.
Yeah, I know, right? But I have watched a lot of streamers, and I've seen a couple, YouTube videos obviously they have pretty up-to-date rigs, and from what I've seen, like, the graphics are indeed really nice. I mean, that is one thing that you can definitely give Snail Games and Studio Wildcard credit for, is that the environment does look really awesome. Even on low settings that can barely be run by a woefully under-equipped video card, I mean, it still looks decent. And also, it's early access, so that probably can and will be freshened up at some point for better optimization.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things where I'd have to kind of do a little perusing on the forums to see what the general consensus is as far as optimization goes.
So in your mind, bottom line, for $30, is this something people should be checking out now? Or given it's an early access, would it be better to wait a few months, or even, hear if there is going to be any kind of word of a price update and jump on before then? Or do you think it's good enough to jump in now?
Well, bottom line, if you're really into sandbox survival and you've played games like Ark or Conan Exiles or anything along that lines, then you'll probably get your money's worth with Dark and Light. For those who may be kind of on the fence, because another game that's kind of somewhat directly competing, as far as survival sandbox fantasy, there's also Citadel, Forged in Flame. I don't really know a whole lot about that, but like, if you're kind of on the fence about it, I would give Dark and Light like a couple months. See how much gets improved, how much gets polished up. See how much kinks get worked out, and check back to see if because if memory serves, I think $30 is about the same price Ark had when that first released early access.
Think so.
Yeah, but there was a lot of problems with Ark. That's a whole different soapbox entirely. But but yeah, I would give it like a tentative yes. I mean, if you're really jonesing for like a new survival scene, I think Dark and Light could fill that niche for you. Like I said, if you're a little on the fence about it, or you're a little more frugal with your money, give it a couple months, see how well it shapes up and pans out, and if things are still looking good and Snail Games treats it well, I would recommend it. Yeah,
cool.
I'd give it a yeah.
Sounds good. Your other game to talk about is called Planetoid Pioneers, developed and published by Data Realms. This is going to be an interesting one because there's two different releases of it. I believe you have access to the contributor edition.
Yes, I do.
There is a contributor edition of the game available for $29.99, or there is a game-only edition for $9.99. The game-only edition released July 20th, so that's the quote new release that we're taking care of here. Explore physics-driven circular worlds in this Metroidvania-like with local co-op combat and crafting. The game-only edition. If you buy the game-only edition, you will today be able to explore over half dozen different planetoids, each featuring entirely different game modes filled with vehicles, creatures, robots, items, and weapons created by us at Data Realms. You will also be able to choose from and subscribe to a rich set of user-generated content made by owners of the Special Contributor Edition, which will keep expanding the Planetoid Pioneers experience in scope and depth for years to come. When Planetoid Pioneers exits early access, this regular edition will also get you all of the editors unlocked at no extra cost, but not until then. The Contributor Edition get everything included in the game-only edition, plus all the commercial-grade game development tools and live editing capabilities of the Crush 2D engine. Become part of the well-established contributor community where you can collaborate and directly share content with the development team and your fellow contributors. Be able to submit your creations for consideration to be integrated into the official shipping game with your name and title appearing in the credits. With a single button press, have the ability to publish whatever you make to the free Steam Workshop for anyone to rate, comment, and subscribe to. So, Ian, what are your thoughts on that very wordy introduction?
Well, Planetoid Pioneers, like, first and foremost, I think it's an absolutely adorable game. Like I said, it's Metroidvania. When I first jumped into it, I was kind of almost expecting it, like, to be a little bit like, if you're familiar with Terraria.
Mm-hmm.
But not really quite so much. It's a very simple game with a lot of nuanced potential. Just to run through the initial things, like the controls are incredibly simple. You can use keyboard and mouse or a gamepad. And in fact, I think one of the planets that I played on required the use of a controller. Now, there is multiplayer, but it's only local at the moment. I don't know if at any point they plan on instituting co-op, across, over the internet or not. I would assume that maybe at some point it would be in the pipelines, because there is a lot you can do with this. First of all, basically you're a little space guy. You crash land on a planet, and depending upon what the I'm just gonna say, like, author, for lack of a better word, or the creator of said planet, because it's a tutorial planet. You crash down and you kind of run around, and it's kind of funny because right when I almost get to a point where I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do? Something happens and I kind of figure it out. You get like this little gun, and basically you I think the in-game term is deatomize objects. And when you deatomize them, you gain like one of 4 materials that you can use to build them, and you also progress on a blueprint. And once you finish the blueprint, you can make that specific item. So eventually you can run around and pick up blueprints for all this stuff that will help, that you can build on the fly to help you progress through these, as described, Metroidvania type levels. It's, like I said, it's very cute, it's very adorable. Every time you die, there's a hilarious Wilhelm scream. And another thing that's really nifty, at least on the plants that I played, is that once you get through with an area, it'll actually say, like, this little window will pop up, be like, hey, what'd you think of this area? Feel free to fill out our survey. So you click that, and it opens up your browser, and you go to their site, and it basically, it's just a nice little survey. How did you feel about the area? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? Thoughts, comments, just general, just a nice little, little critique comment card you can leave for them.
Tell me how I did, Daddy.
Yeah, pretty much. And like I said, I'm going to kind of segue this into the Creator Edition. There's a lot of nuanced stuff that you can do, and also, the updates are pretty common. They're pretty regular. Because I remember I went in and played, and there's kind of like the tutorial planet, and I kind of played around, doofed around on that for about an hour, and then, a couple days later, I logged back in, and there's like 3 or 4 more planets to play around on. And then after that, there was like another 3 or 4, because like I think what you set up to, there's about like a half dozen or so, about probably 8 to 10 by now. And let's see here. because there's a tutorial planet, which basically, it's just more of an exploration. It gets your feet wet. It really, after it teaches you how to do all the basic stuff, you're pretty much free to explore the rest of the planet and figure out how to access other areas using stuff you built. And some of the created content, there is one where it's like a timed wrangling exercise. Like there's these little jellyfish things that are kind of spread around the planet, and basically a clock starts running down, and the key is to see how fast you can gather them all up. And you can hop into like this little lunar dune buggy cart thing and zip around the planet and crash it. And another planet actually looks like it's designed for like a multiplayer race. Basically, you pick your character, you pick your dune buggy, and then it looked like, I want to say, up to 4 players could just try to race each other around the planet and avoid the obstacles, and or shoot each other up and or their vehicles. And and also something I didn't even realize. That's right, because I was playing it and I ran into some robots and they started shooting at me, and I shot at them, and there's different weapons you can make and stuff like that. And I ended up destroying the robot, and I noticed that my character is moving a little weird. I couldn't quite figure out why, and he couldn't jump really well. I zoomed in. It turns out the robot blasted off my legs. You can actually lose your limbs in this game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so like my dude is sitting there kind of half pulling himself along. And eventually, like, you could lose a leg. If you lose a leg, you'll just sit there and kind of half-assedly hop around on the other one. You could lose your arms, and eventually sometimes you can get dismembered to the point where the game will just be like, press F9 to restart. Your game's not technically over, but just do yourself the favor and press F9 to start.
Just respawn.
And the respawning mechanic is really interesting because you can go around, you can find like bodies of skeletons and stuff like that. And if you get enough materials, you can create yourself a little respawn chamber on the spot, so you don't actually have to go all the way back to the beginning point of the planet. You can just kind of create yourself a nice little respawn chamber and plop that wherever you see fit.
So it basically sounds like a Terraria Metroidvania sandbox game.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep. And
that sounds really cool.
It really is. And like all the physics for a lot of the stuff, like there's like a grappling hook that you can use to kind of Spider-Man your way through caverns and stuff like that. There's various different vehicles. There's jetpacks. And I kind of feel like I've only really scratched the surface, but like all the physics for them are really haphazardly hilarious, I guess would be the best way to put it. Like you don't play this game for seriousness. I mean, this is the sort of game you go in knowing full well that goofy shit will happen.
This is fuck around the video game.
Yeah. And
the world needs more games that are just fuck around the video game.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. And let's see here, let me glance at my notes. Oh, the music. The music is fan-fucking-tastic. There have been times where I queued up the game just for the music and just minimized it just so the music would play while I'm doing other stuff.
Nice.
I mean, it kind of has that old school, I don't want to say like 16-bit era, but it just has, I mean, at least for me, it just, the arrangements are really nice. They're very atmospheric. Sometimes a music will queue up and you're like, man, I'm ready to fucking own this shit. Let's fucking do it. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm doing it with style. And I would just love to figure, like, if they released a soundtrack, I would be all up in that business.
That's what I was looking for on the Steam page. The only DLC they have is the upgrade to the Contributor Edition.
Speaking of the Contributor Edition, it might be entirely possible to extract the music through that. Now, the Contributor Edition, like, I kind of avoided because I wanted to get the actual game experience first before I poked at the Contributor Edition.
Yeah.
Or basically the game maker.
And there's a lot of people out there, myself included, who would rather just play the crazy shit that other people make instead of, trying to have imagination.
Yeah, like this, I mean, I've never played it. I'm not sure if you have, but I've really want to kind of draw a parallel to Little Big Planet. Because I want to say that's kind of sort of in the wheelhouse as well, like where basically there's like a lot of custom user-made levels that other people can play.
Yeah.
Sort of, I don't want to go so far as like Mario Maker, but yeah, the contributor, the game maker portion of the game is like, it blew me away. Like, I opened it up and it's like, do you ever remember the first time you opened Adobe Photoshop? And you spent the better part of 15 minutes just trying to figure out how to draw a straight line. Like
Photoshop, I had problems in Paint.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the only way I could, like, looking at the game making portion of the contributor edition, like, it is insane how in depth, how like I don't even think I could really do it justice to describe it was honestly, to me, to someone like me, it was incredibly overwhelming, because I thought it was just, sort of like an MS Paint kind of thing. Like, here's your planet, draw some tunnels, put in a door, here's the trigger to open it, so I have to go over here, do this and that, bam, they open the door, they get to the next section. Yay. No. No.
Like a ridiculously deep creator.
Yeah, like just like the character model editor in and of itself would probably take me like the better part of a day or two to really figure out, because you can adjust like all the hinge points, how they move, how they jump, and like, don't even get me started on how the zillion and one ways you can manipulate the physics engine in this game.
God, so I guess it all comes down to the verdict for $10 for the game only edition. What do you give this game?
I would say I would definitely give the game only edition a definite, definitely a buy and or try, because it's early access. It hasn't been out for too long, so obviously there's not a whole lot of stuff. But there's not a doubt in my mind that if the right people get their hands on the community edition and start pumping out some really crazy, amazing, crazy shit, like, it's definitely going to be worth playing just for that. For the
$30 contributor edition, what are your thoughts on that one?
I would not get it unless you were dead nuts serious about going balls deep into actually, contributing. Because, like I said, the Game Maker edition is definitely not for the casual designer.
Yeah.
Like, if you're the sort of guy expecting MS Paint, you're going to get like Adobe version 12.6. And, I mean, like, you could sit there, like, I was kind of nervous about messing around with anything because I didn't want to permanently fuck something up.
As I punch my mic stand.
Yeah. But that, in a way, just kind of led this credence to the game in and of itself. Like, I mean, if you can really get that kind of a latch onto the game and really get that deep into the mechanics of the content you can create, then, oh yeah, $10 for this, definitely. I would definitely go for, definitely recommend the game only version.
So it sounds like game only for $10 is definitely worth picking up. If you are a creator, the $30 isn't a bad idea, but for the general public, the game only for $10 seems like the best way, because whenever this leaves early access, I think they're aiming for early next year sometime, your game will upgrade to the full complete edition, plus the game only version will be getting a price increase when the game launches, since that'll be the version.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I wasn't even aware that it would be automatically upgraded when it officially releases. So that's even more all the reason to get the game only version. But yeah, like, unless you really have your heart set on getting into it and having your stuff, contributing your stuff to the game itself, then only if you're serious, go for the contributor edition.
Well, I just wish listed the game myself, because I might have to end up grabbing the game only version. Mm-hmm. But Ian, thank you so much for joining us and talking about these two games. Any final words to sum them up?
Not really. thank you for having me. But yeah, no, I think they're both enjoyable games designed for the audiences that appreciate what they represent.
All right, next up we have 2 Steam games to talk about, and for these we are bringing in our good friend Tom Miller. Tom, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing all right today.
How's the West Coast going?
The West Coast is nice. It's not on fire anymore, and that's good.
That is always a positive.
Yeah, it's like I can breathe. It's so nice. You take that kind of thing for granted until it doesn't happen.
If it's not fires or like stupidly hot weather, it's, racists. So
yeah, well, yeah, we got those in pretty much everywhere. So,
America.
Yeah. Ugh.
Anyway, you are joining us to talk about 2 games. The first up is called Looterkings, developed by Looterkings, published by Headup Games. It left Steam Early Access on August 11th for $17.99. Looterkings is a procedural dungeon crawler you can play online in co-op mode with up to 3 of your friends. Loot as much as you can on your way up from the dark caves beneath Earth to the surface. Gear up and reach your ultimate goal, ravaging the hollowed halls of the Elven Queen eventually. Tom, what'd you think of Looterkings?
So, yeah, well, the funny thing is, I was going to do this last week when it was still in early access, and I'm kind of glad we put it off because actually the second half of the game got added in between the time when I would have reviewed it and now. So I will say that I'm very happy to have had the chance to play the whole game so I can give you my actual opinion on the whole thing instead of just the first few levels.
Always a positive.
Yeah. So yeah, it is a procedural dungeon crawler, and you've got it really is a vastly different game depending on whether you're playing solo versus whether you're playing with other people. And another reason I'm glad that we put it off is because I got to do some really good multiplayer earlier, and really So the good things about the game, it's so charming to look at. Like, all the character models are really, it's just like the way they move and the way they talk. They have the sound effects are really funny. You have you can kind of do vocal, a little bit of a limited voice chat thing by having them be no, and follow me, and that sounds more like Mickey Mouse than the actual characters do in the game. But the whole thing just has a really good sense of humor. I like it has a balance between co-op and competitive gameplay where you kind of have to work with one another in order to clear a lot of the areas, because there are a ton of enemies and a lot of them are really tanky, so you got to join forces, but then at the same time you're kind of trying to outdo each other, getting more loot, and you can stun each other and steal each other's loot and stuff. And so it has that mix of well, we have to work together to survive, and you son of a bitch, and it's I love that. So I really I'm really glad that I got to do a full run through of the game. We actually died on what I assume is the final boss when I was playing, but it's still it's got a lot of good stuff going for it. When you're playing solo, and I feel like you're really not supposed to, because it does have the real community element to it. It's really tedious, honestly, and I hate to say it, but it doesn't scale with the number of people who are playing. So when I was trying to play it solo, I spent literally more than 5 minutes on the very first boss of the game, just repeatedly attacking it with my crossbow, and it couldn't really do anything to me, and it was just oh my god, this is terrible. But when you got more people involved, of course it's going to be a lot more fun. So it really, it is a game that I recommend playing if you have a group of friends to play it with, and have a reliable way to do co-op, because that does, it makes it exponentially more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say I personally have an issue with the game, and that's I wanted to play with you and try it out with you, but the game does not have controller support at all right now.
Yeah, and that is, that's one of the things on the Steam that It's on the discussion board. Like,
oh,
it's one of the,
I definitely know it's on the discussion
board. I really hope they do, because, like, I mean, this game is, I mean, it feels like it's made to be played with a controller, and I mean, like, I generally prefer, I mean, and I know you vastly prefer controller to mouse and keyboard.
I can't use mouse and keyboard. I can't do it. Even on when I played Guild Wars 2 on PC, yes, once upon a time I played a PC game. I used X-Patter to try and some way finagle it to play it completely on a controller, and then just have a wireless keyboard in my lap when I wanted to chat with someone. I tried using X-Patter with this, and I just couldn't get things to work right.
Oh, man.
So I don't know if it's just been that long since I used X-Patter that I suck at using it, which would make sense. But I know on the forums they do say that it is planned to bring controller support to the game, but you know, it just left early access, so it's technically full release and it still doesn't have it. So I don't know what's going on there.
That is kind of disappointing for sure, and I really hope they do add it soon. And then, like, other than that, I mean, there are some minor things like, you know, when you're using a ranged weapon, it'd be really nice to have a reticle or something, because it's hard to tell where you're going to shoot a lot of the time. And, you know, that's just kind of sort of an ease of use thing. And it just... So, like, kind of my biggest deal with it is that, like, the time that I played through it and was able to play all the way through the game, I was playing with people who were, like, you know, tens of levels higher than I was. Mm-hmm. And, like, it was at that point that the game was fun. So, like, it does kind of feel like you're just kind of locked out of the fun stuff in the game at the beginning, and you really do kind of have to work through and just be really, really weak for a while. Which, I mean, of course, like, it's good to have a progression of like, getting more powerful, but at the same time, it starts you off so low that it's like, I think a lot of people might get discouraged before they actually got to the parts of the game where it was fun.
Yeah, I know my friend refers to Diablo 3 is the same way, where, like, the actual game starts after you beat the game with all the post-game content and the rifts and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So, overall, for $18, what are your thoughts on this one?
So my thoughts on it, like, if you have a group of people who are into it and who want to play it and you know, level up and get good at it, then I think there's a lot of fun to be had. I think there are a lot of ways that it could be improved, like, you know, like you were saying, controller support and just like controller support, do it, and just general quality of life stuff. But, you know, if you do have a group of people like that, I think it could be a really enjoyable thing. There's another, like, Twitch mode where you can have, you can connect it with a Twitch chat and have the chat influence the game in different ways, which I didn't... Oh,
that's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. And I didn't really get into it because, I mean, I have a Twitch channel, but I have, like, 3 followers, so it didn't really make a difference.
Should have told me you were streaming. I would have jumped on and fucked with you.
And it looks like you really can, too. I mean, you can do lots of stuff.
Ooh, they have a text file of phrases you could use.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you do have a community, if you have a group of people to play with, I think it's worth it. Otherwise, I think I might skip it, actually. Just, you know, it's just like, it's kind of tough to find a group of people just going on the lobby and waiting around for randos, and then God knows you might end up playing with me, and you don't want that. And yeah, but you know, if you do have that community around, I would say check it out for sure.
And if anyone's on the fence, by this Friday, the 18th, it is on sale for $13.49, so 25% off. Only a few days available once you hear this show, you know, unless you're listening to it late. Well, then fuck yourself. How about that? So $18 on sale for $13.49 if you're looking to save a couple of pennies. Yeah, I want to give it another shot once controller support's added, because it looks fun, and hopefully I'll have some friends to play with. Maybe you and I could give it a shot, and we could play on Twitch and have someone type vasectomy and see what the fuck that does.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's one of the phrases you can use. Next game to talk about is called Fictorum, developed and published by Scraping Bottom Games. It released August 9th on Steam for $19.99. Fictorum is an action RPG featuring destructible environments, a procedural node-based world map, and dynamic magic shaping. You are a powerful wizard of a forbidden magical order, the Fictorum, with the unique ability to shape and master all schools of magic. Tom, what kind of a wizard are you?
Well, in this game, I try to be a badass, and then it doesn't really work. Yeah. So this is like, I've never been like a fan of a notion of like guilty pleasures. I feel like you should just kind of own the things that you like, and I feel like this is kind of the prime example of it, because like I had so much fun playing this game, and honestly, like, so I'll get into it, but like, the first time I was playing this game, I was like laughing out loud because of just like the different stuff that you could do and just having a great time with it. You can get stuff that lets you jump like 100 feet into the air, and you can like throw fireballs and destroy buildings just like without even thinking about it. So like, in terms of just like getting into it immediately, it was just super enjoyable. And yeah, so after that, there were some other things that started to creep into the picture, but like, first impressions of this game, really, really fun. That said, it is pretty rough around the edges. Like, so I don't know, just like looking at it, if you look at the trailer, that is obviously running on like the highest possible settings, because it doesn't look that good on my computer. And I think like you need to have a pretty solid system to be able to run it at its full potential, which, I mean, I don't have a great computer, but like still, it does have like sort of a dated look to it, but it's dated in sort of like a charming way, like an old school PC game where like it's sort of janky and like the controls feel like pretty floaty and weird, but like it's somehow charming regardless. And you can, I mean, just like being able to knock down buildings, but like they have, like, they just kind of explode, which is I love. It's not realistic, but I love it.
I mean, sometimes you need fun more than realism, especially when you're blowing shit up like crazy.
Exactly, and that is like the core of this game, I think. The actual game, so I didn't really know what it meant as far as like a node-based world map. So I didn't really know what I was getting into, but like the flow of the game, if you've played the game FTL, which, I think a lot of people have, it's a pretty well-known indie game.
I haven't.
Oh man. It's really fun. I recommend it, but it has like, so you have just a bunch of different points on a world map that you can teleport to, and as you're advancing through the map, you're being chased. So you're like this wizard who escaped from execution, and you're trying to get revenge on the people who tried to execute you, and they're chasing after you as well. So there's like this wave that is progressively moving closer and closer to you, and you have to like kind of make your way across the world map, and there are different quests that happen randomly along the way. So it's similar in that way. I mean, that's pretty much exactly how FTL worked, except you have like these action RPG quests in the middle instead. So it has a really interesting, like, all the story is not, I don't think it's procedurally generated necessarily. I came across a lot of the same quests, but it plays out differently every time, which makes it fun, and it doesn't get too repetitive because you're always running across.
That's actually what I was going to ask about, because it says a procedural node-based world map. Like, what the hell does that mean?
It just means it plays out differently every time, and you have like different paths that you can take throughout the world. But the world itself is like a static image that you just can teleport to different points along. So,
gotcha.
I mean, yeah.
So it's like kind of dropping like different events on an overworld, and then that's what's randomized instead of the actual world itself.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're learning together.
Yeah, for sure.
And on the Steam page, I could see what you mean about the visuals. It kind of reminds me of something like Morrowind or Oblivion, and not so much like Skyrim. It has that older look to it, but it doesn't look bad.
No, I don't think it does. But yeah, it definitely doesn't look like something that would have been made, today. It has a different. It goes for a different vibe than a lot of modern RPGs do, and I like that. It gives me some nostalgia for sure.
It reminds me of Two Worlds. That's what it reminds me of.
I didn't play that one. I think I saw a little bit of it. I think I saw somebody speedrun that in like a minute and a half or something.
Yeah, there was something where like the boss was spawned at the beginning, and there was a way to like drag him to the first village and have him accidentally attack a villager, and the villagers are immortal, and they would just gang up and chip away his health until he died. It was hilarious to watch.
Yes, I do remember that. It's exactly what I was thinking of.
Which has nothing to do with this game.
No, well, it doesn't, except in that it has like some sort of broken parts to it, but at the same time, they're very entertaining.
I think one of the chief complaints I'm seeing about it is that it's very repetitive.
Yeah, and it can get that way. And also, like, the soundtrack gets really repetitive, too. You have kind of a couple of the same cues that just show up in every single stage that you end up playing. So I don't know how much longevity it would necessarily have. And, I mean, I definitely... I'm definitely not a fan of how most of the missions pretty much play out in the same way. Even if they are fun on their own.
True. So for $20, what's your verdict on this one?
So I do really like this game. That said, because of like the sort of repetitious nature of it and the sort of like jankiness of it in general, I'm not sure if I'd go for it for $20. I'd say, though, if you're interested, I would keep an eye out for it, and if it goes on sale, I definitely would recommend it, because even it's just fun, and it's just a great game to just play for a weekend, blow a bunch of shit up, and just kind of make your way through and see what you can do. But I like it quite a bit, honestly.
So basically wish list it and see if it drops down a couple of bucks sometime.
That would be what I would say.
Sounds good. Well, Tom, thank you so much for covering these two games. Any final words to sum it all up?
It's just it was like procedural generation week here, but but it's good. Yeah.
This review is procedurally generated.
Thank you, Joe, for having me on your program.
Next up, we have a 2-pack of Nintendo Switch games to talk about, and for this, we're bringing in our good friend and the voice of SML, Norg. How are you doing today?
2-pack!
Oh my god, you're that guy from the show. Quick, do the thing.
The guy, what? You're the guy from the show! Oh my god, do the thing, do the thing that you do! Oh my god, it's so funny! Oh my god,
see, know, so do.
I actually don't know what you're talking about.
This is the intro. That's what you do on this show. That's the thing you do on this show.
Welcome to the SML Podcast. Joe Cam's milky voice is curdled.
Ball Squad!
Ball Squad!
Oh my god. Grant is insane, and somehow he's more insane than us, which is impressive.
I love it. I can't get enough of that.
Especially because there's some insane Switch stuff we got to talk about, because the first game we're going to talk about is called Slime Son, developed by Fabraz.
Segue.
I tried. Developed by Fabraz, published by Headup Games, released August 3rd on Nintendo Switch for $11.99, previously on Steam. Slime Son was minding his own business when suddenly a giant worm appeared and gobbled him up. Deep within the worm's belly, Slime Son has to face a decision: be digested by the incoming wall of stomach acid, or jump, slide, and slime his way through the worm and back out its mouth. George, what'd you think of Slimes?
I love all the worm metaphors. It's fantastic. So
the thing with Slime Son is it's impossible to talk about this game at all without like bringing up Super Meat Boy. So let's just address the elephant in the room. It reminds me of the worm in the room. It reminds me of Super Meat Boy. There it is. There's the elephant. Woo! So the whole concept of the game is like super fun and it's challenging. It's obviously a platformer. It's really green, and you done got swallowed by a giant creature, and its stomach acids are intent on having you absorbed into the collective tissue, regeneration, and other nutritional fortitude.
Real quick, I gotta know, can your wife hear you when you like scream like that?
Nope!
Because I could just imagine her, like, I don't know, sitting on the couch reading a magazine. She just hears, "Nope, it's inside you." Just, what the fuck is he doing tonight?
Nope, can't hear a thing. I am in a detached garage.
Nice.
And my nearest neighbor's like 2 acres away. It's fantastic.
But the stalker in your bushes, he can hear you.
Don't talk about the stalker in the bushes. And it's not a stalker. It's probably a bear.
Or Sean.
No, like it could literally be a bear. We caught it rifling through our yard waste a couple weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
I love living out here. Anyway, so yeah, your goal as the little green slime dude is to find your way out of the creature's vast network of digestive puzzle theory and escape through the mouth. It sounds like the opposite of a bad porno. Or like a scene out of The Empire Strikes Back, except it's more green and it has chip music. Speaking of chip music, the soundtrack in this game is awesome. I cannot get enough of the music in this game. And the sound effects are fantastic too. Like I can't even single anything out. It's great. The gameplay itself is fun, and it gets more difficult the further you go on. And it also gets more difficult the more ambitious you want to be, because you can collect these apple-looking things and then spend them on objects and upgrades and other stuff. And there's like this town that you can explore. And I think that's one of the cool things that I really like about this is it's not just go through the levels, escape the worm, go through the level, escape the worm, go through the level, escape the worm. It's there's more to it than that. Sorry, I had to snooze Windows. It was going to reboot on me in just a second, and then we were going to cut off. So, like, there's this town, and there's a lot of hidden stuff that you can find, and there's a dance party button. There's a dance party button. There's a dance party button. It's so cool.
Like a dedicated button.
Like inside one of the floors of one of the buildings, you stand on the button and the lights come on. And it's like with a disco ball and everything. It's the cutest thing. When I started playing it, I wasn't sure I was going to enjoy it. And the more I played it, the more I enjoyed it, and the more I explored, and the more I tried to hunt for creative ways to get through some of the levels with some of the power-ups and get some of the extra stuff. It just kept getting more and more and more fun. And that's kind of rare, actually, given that these things start to get tedious after a while. And I'm by no means all the way through the game, but I have yet to hit a point where the game felt tedious. It's great.
Nice. Yeah, I enjoyed it on Steam. We covered it way back when it first launched on Steam, on that version. Yeah, we covered the Steam version on Steam. Words are fun for me.
Well done.
I try. And we really enjoyed it then. I'm glad to hear that it still holds its charm and wonder on the Switch version. Did everything control well? Everything play well?
Yeah, everything controlled great. The responsiveness of even the Joy-Cons was fantastic. Absolutely no lag, no frame rate drops. It handled extremely well from start to finish of the entire time that I played it.
And what'd you think of that color palette?
I don't know. I still have just perpetual green stuck in my brain, except for when the stomach acid tries to eat you. That it's like, oh, that's really happening. Nice.
I also enjoy the fact that, like, out of levels, it's kind of like an open worldy town you can explore and talk to people, and it's a lot more complex than it looks on the surface.
It really is. And a lot of that stuff is what kept it kind of going, because if I started to get even a little bit bored of just the regular levels, then okay, I'm just going to go exploring over here and talk to random person this and discuss random thing that and look for things that I can buy with my stuff or with my little apples or whatever those things were. It's got a lot of little things that can keep you entertained for quite a while.
So I guess the question is, for $12, what's your verdict?
$12, buy it.
Sounds good. I will. And
all right.
For those who are on Steam, they also have a deluxe edition for $14.99 that includes the soundtrack.
Yes. I meant to look it up because I'm guessing that there was more than one person who was involved in the soundtrack, but the music is so good. Do you have any idea who was involved in that?
A whole bunch of people. It's like I think every song is either done by someone else or featuring someone else.
Okay.
I'm just going off the iTunes list here. It's like it's listed as under Fabraz, so the developer. I'm not sure if he also worked on the music or if he outsourced it, and it's just easier to list it as him.
Got it.
Let's see. Richard Gould, Adhesive Wombat, Misha Perella, Phantomenk, Mega Neko, some weird guy on here
Holy crap.
Some weird guy on here called Inverse Fazzy.
Fassi?
Yes, Inverse Fassi.
Pahassi. Got it. Okay.
So yeah, he has a song on there too.
Dude, I know a lot of those names. No what? Wow. So it's a who's who of chiptune artists, basically.
Pretty much. And if you want the soundtrack separately, it is on iTunes for $7, so you could grab it there.
Nice. I probably will.
And I'm not sure if it's available yet, or if they're planning on it, but they're going to be doing a fucking vinyl release.
What?
Yes. Yeah, man, on fucking Green Records too.
Now that is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
That's almost as cool as the Primus album that's about to come out on like paint splattered vinyl.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
I know. I'll send a picture when I get it.
I'll include a link to the pre-order page for the vinyl in our show notes if anybody's interested in checking it out. They're doing a pre-order now, and they're planning to ship in early September.
Oh, nice. That's coming up.
So there you go.
Sweet!
There you go. There you go. But yeah, next game to talk about is called Ironcast, also on the Switch, developed by Dreadbit, published by our friends at Ripstone. Released August 10th on Nintendo Switch for $12.99, previously available on damn near everything. Every decision you make plays a crucial part in deciding your fate, from collecting resources to choosing your next mission. Control a mechanized war machine and lead your troops to victory through a series of challenging battles, trade assignments, and survival missions. Death is permanent, but rewards are persistent, and no two campaigns are the same. George, what'd you think of Ironcast?
Can I start out just by saying holy shit?
Yes.
Excellent. Holy shit. So I have a soft spot, and it's a really, really bad soft spot for gem matching games in general. I can't even remember the name of the one that I spent a ton of time playing, but it had some RPG elements to it. Actually, there's more than one that had RPG elements to it. Crime. I've played so many stupid gem matching games. But
Puzzle Quest?
That might have been one of them. Was it the one where you could match skulls?
Yes.
Yep. There were two of them, right?
There were three, actually. Puzzle Quest Galactrix, and then Puzzle Quest 2.
Okay, no, it was not Puzzle Quest. It was something else. If I find the name, I'll let you know. But I spent a lot of time playing that on DS, I think it was. And then its sequel wasn't quite as good. But, and then there was another one with like RPG elements where you play 4 characters, but that's another story for another time. So I had no idea what I was getting into with this because I had never seen any of the gameplay before. And I was just ticked when I first started it because I got in and I died quickly. And I'm like, well, fuck, where's my continue? Oh, there's no continue. Great. And then I found myself throwing myself against the first boss like 7 or 8 times before finally beating it. And I could not stop. I kept coming back to it. The music's pretty good. The dialogue is appropriate to the era, which was one of the world wars. It's so steampunky, just like over the top steam. It's like steampunky Brewster steampunky. Just they totally embraced it, and the whole idea that you have these mechanized robots as the British fighting against the French is borderline comical, but it takes itself so seriously that it actually works. And the missions are very like serious stuff. You're trying to rescue hostages. You're trying to capture traitors. Or in one case, you're trying to negotiate a trade for soldiers for some of the scrap that you've accumulated. And then there's this perpetual countdown where one of the bosses, you've got like 7 or 8 turns, and you've got to build up some weapons and armor and movement speed before this boss gets to you, because otherwise you are proper fucked. So you have to make decisions. You can't just focus on one thing or another thing. You've got to balance things out to try to make sure that you can deal with the first boss. I have not yet gotten to the second boss, and I'm about to, so this could be a to be continued. But Ooh. I am, and they're correct. You do earn these awards as you go through the game. You can either pick them up on the gem field, or for every, I think it's X thousand of experience points, you'll get more of them. And then you'll unlock other characters, other robots, and other abilities. And those will carry with you each time you restart the game. So it's not like you're necessarily starting from scratch each time. You're actually building up the baseline of things that you are capable of doing as the game progresses. And as you collect gems, as you beat up other robots, you collect experience points, which will level your character up, give you more hit points, and give you the capability of utilizing some of the things that you've unlocked. So there are a lot of facets to it. It is not the same game each time, because there's no guarantee that you're going to get the things that you need to even get through the first boss in any given playthrough. And then there's a lot of strategy involved. Do you blitz and attack? Do you go defensively? Do you try to strike a balance between the two? And each situation is going to be completely different, and there isn't necessarily one correct answer each time. So it keeps you guessing, and it's a tremendous amount of fun.
Indeed. I really enjoy it. We covered the original release on Xbox One, and that's why I called on you to check out the Switch version. How well does it play? I'm assuming it uses the touchscreen and all?
You know, it's interesting. You can use both. So the Z, L, and L buttons correspond to your weapons. The ZR and R buttons correspond to your movement and your shields. And then you can use the analog stick to move on the playing field to line up which gems they are that you want to line up. Or you can do all that on the touch screen. So it's kind of a hybrid of both. You could do a hybrid, you could do all touch screen, you could do all controllers. And I've found that given the situation, most of the time I'm just used to using the controllers, but every once in a while I just feel like hitting the buttons on the screen, and that works very responsively as well.
Nice. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I was actually kind of interested in picking up the Switch release for myself, is just to use the touchscreen aspect of it. Match 3 games just seem perfect with a touchscreen. Go figure, huh?
And the crazy thing is, this is one of the first ones I've ever played where if you're stuck and there's just nothing out there, or you are in need of a quick fix for either engine power or coolant or a repair fix, you can actually match 2 and complete a round that way. You generally don't want to, but you're not locked into always having to match 3 or more.
Indeed. It's all about getting those big ass chains too. If you could wipe out a big chunk of the board with the linkers and everything else.
Exactly.
It's fucking satisfying. I like how I sent you a link to the page for it, because you're like, oh, Ironcast, I haven't heard of that. And I linked it to you, and you're like, is this just a match 3 game? I'm like, oh, it is so much more. So
you had me at match 3, so
was I right when I said it was so much more than just a match 3 game?
You are so correct. It's
goddamn right. I am.
Hell yeah! Hell yeah! Preach! That's great, man. I am. But we already know that.
For the $13 they're asking, what's your thoughts on this one?
$13, buy it.
Man, you're easy to please this week. 2 buy it.
I'm big spender. No, seriously, both games were really good. I wouldn't even bother with trying them. I would just say, get them. They're a good time. With the caveat on Slime Son, if you absolutely loathe platformers, you may want to try it first. But otherwise, the soundtrack alone is fantastic. At that price, it's definitely worth getting. And it's fun.
I agree.
And then Ironcast, everybody should just buy it, period.
I agree. I'm so happy that Ripstone brought Ironcast to the Switch. I know they're going to be bringing Chess Ultra to the Switch next as well, so I'm excited for that.
Ooh. I suck at chess, but hey, why not?
I take it you're interested if we get that one?
Maybe. I suck at chess, so there might not be a good... Is it actual chess?
Yes, it is straight up chess. They have very deep tutorials. We reviewed the Xbox version a while back. You should go check out that episode. You should listen to our show. It's kind of okay sometimes.
What show is this again? I lost track.
I don't know. Some dickhead hosts it.
I was told there'd be sandwiches in the back after this episode is finished because I'm a little peckish and I could use a couple of sandwiches and maybe some Kool-Aid.
On that note, George, thank you so much for covering these games for us. It is always a pleasure having you on, chatting with us and talking games and making me laugh my ass off. You make me laugh more than anybody else who comes on this show.
Balls.
Yes, on that note, thanks, George, and we're moving on.
Following those words of wisdom.
Balls. Serious, though, moving on. Last up tonight, we have a 3-pack of games to talk about with our good friend Pernell Vaughan. Pernell, how are you doing today?
All right, actually. Especially with the games I got reviewing today, this is a good loadout.
Yeah, you got a nice pack to talk about today, and we're going to kick things off with you with Graceful Explosion Machine, developed and published by Vertex Pop. It released August 8th on PS4 and Steam for $12.99, previously on the Nintendo Switch. Skillfully pilot the Graceful Explosion Machine, a fighter ship armed with a ludicrously overpowered quad weapon array. Lost in deep space, you'll shoot, dash, and combo your way through jewel-hued, uncharted planets, fighting an alien armada to find a way home. Pernell, tell me about Graceful Explosion Machine.
I would, but you kind of just explained the whole game in the flavor text, literally. But that doesn't make it bad at all. In fact, that's what makes it great. The game is essentially a side-scrolling shooter that wraps around itself, except for in some levels where it's kind of an arena that expands. But the idea is that different types of enemies will pop up, either, like basically 3 different tiers of enemies. It'll be like the nubs that can get just knocked out with no problem, the armored guys, and like the slightly more armored guys. So you have 4 different guns. Whoa, flavor text comment. 4 different guns. 3 of them drain one type of energy bar, and the other one drains a different one. The main gun gets its own energy bar. So the idea and the way the game is meant to be played is you have to jump between your 3 special weapons, which are missiles, laser beam, and energy sword, which is really awesome, by the way. You have to jump between those 3 things and your main blaster to keep your stealth from running out of energy, like shooting enemies at a constant rate and killing them so that your combo meter remains high. Killing the right enemies with the right type of weapon so that you don't lose too much time while trying to kill guys, otherwise you'll lose your combo. And also, because of how they give you bonus points, flipping your ship as little as possible. Because flipping from left to right. It's a surprisingly elegant game. It's one of those games where you start out playing it and you might just think, I just want to see how far I get. And then once you realize how the dance works, it's like, nope, I died. I got to start the whole level over. Cannot do this. Which is why I don't get very far in games like this for a while. I take forever because I want to S things. I finally forced myself to play through all the way through the second world because I finally stopped trying to get S rank on all the stages. It's that kind of game. But it is legitimately good. I put hours into this game. You might be like, what the heck? How do you put hours into a game if you only got to the second world and it's a short game? Because I was going for S ranks, which I also
replayability, man.
Oh yeah, and I believe that's what the intent of the game ultimately is. I mean, sure, you can come in and just kind of play it and get through the game, but I personally feel like this game is intended for you to come and play for those high scores. Because, again, levels themselves are pretty short. They get challenging. It's not a walk in the park by any means, but, I mean, if you're just surviving to get to the end of the game, you won't take very long. You can probably do it in like 3 to 4 hours, easy. Maybe 5, if you're just really struggling. But getting those high scores and getting flawless runs through stage, which means never dying and never losing combo, that's going to take some friggin' work.
Oh,
but
man.
Again, that's what you come for. That's what you come to these kind of games for. So, I personally think the game is excellent. I wanted to get it on the Switch, but didn't because money wasn't quite there. Yeah, the game is cheap, but when there's like a bunch of launch games dropping, even that's a lot of money. So, but getting to try it on this system, oh my god, I highly recommend this to anybody that can buy it. It's a great game. It's a good hit, a good shot in the arm, as it were. You'll be glad you bought it.
So for the $12, I guess you kind of covered it, but for the $12.99, your official verdict?
Oh yeah, if you like shooters or side-scrolling shooters in score chasing, it's a definite grab. Pick this bad boy up.
Nice.
The music is good too.
And the soundtrack is available on Steam as well if you pick up the Steam version. So good stuff there.
Become a graceful explosion machine of your own. Just keep it to the game and not in your car.
All right, next game to talk about is called ACA NEOGEO Zed Blade. Yes, we are covering another Arcade Archives Neo Geo title, and I am happy to cover this one once again. Console version developed and published by Hamster Corporation. This one released July 20th on Xbox One for $7.99. Might be on other platforms. I know the ACA releases are kind of weird with some of them show up on some systems, some on others, so we know it's on Xbox for $8. Zed Blade is a horizontal scrolling shoot 'em up released by NMK in 1994 with the ability to select aircraft weaponry you can battle in a way that fits your playstyle. Join Operation Ragnarok to destroy the giant runaway fortress Yggdrasil. I think that's how you say it.
So it's not a tree in this game, it's an actual fortress.
It's a big-ass fortress. So I know that both of us played this one. What were your thoughts on this?
Well, I think the challenge for this game may have come from the fact that I was given Graceful Explosion Machine on the same week. But while the game is not bad, quite the contrary, it's not bad. Something about it just didn't really gel with me as a must-get, but it's more like hey, if you love shooters, you want more shooters, and you're just itching, it's still a good get. But things I didn't like about this game is more so there's a very specific dislike, which is a personal taste, honestly, is that this is one of those games where you press the button and it fires all of your guns at once. Like in the case of this, you fire your back gun, your missile fire weapon, and your front weapon with one button press, which is almost like Super Baby Easy mode. Now, I know you might be saying to yourself, well, Gradius does that too. Yeah, but the difference between this game and Gradius or whatever you want to pronounce it as is that Gradius adds that extra strategic element of having to choose what upgrades to put on at any given time based on what you pick up and when you select the button, press the button and choose something to run with. So it's like, yeah, you're holding the button and firing everything, but it's going to take you a while to even get to the point where you are a killing machine in that game. And then one hit kill will just pretty much set you back to nobody lane. So, but in this game, you start out with all three weapon types, and it just stays that way. Yeah, they get stronger as you collect items, but you always have those three things. And I'm not going to lie.
Those three things aren't necessarily going to help you, though, because if you're powered up and you're tearing shit up, once you die, like, they'll drop 2 random power-ups for you to recollect. But you're pretty much fucked.
One thing I was surprised about, I thought that originally that you lose everything, but I think if you go up, let's say you're up 3 levels, right, on something, and then you die, they give you 2 baubles that bounce on to be recollected, but at least in some capacity, they don't drop you to nothing. Like, I've come back at level 2 on missiles and bullets and just picked up the floating items to get jacked up a little bit more. So maybe what it is, they cut you in half, and then give you the balls to replenish 1 more level. and then the rest is like you're just lost with, which I admit is still gracefully better than Gradius in that regard, because that's Gradius's blessing and curse, which is that, you're a freaking, once you get to that point, you're a killing machine, but if you lose one life, you're like, well, time to start this game over.
Pretty much. If you Konami code that motherfucker on the first stage and you die, that's game over. You're never going to recover.
That is
At
correct.
least in Zed Blade, like, you call it easy mode, but in those later stages, it doesn't matter how easy it is to just hold the button and shoot, because things are going to kill you and you are going to die. The ACA games, I love the fact that they have like the dip switches that you could go in and adjust. I went in, and a lot of times when I play these games, like I'll do the high score mode, I'll do the caravan mode, and then I'll do like the single player, and I'll just go like very easy, maximum lives, whatever I could do, just so I could experience the full game. Because they're arcade games, they're fairly quick to get through. It's 1994 arcade games. You're not going to get a 20-hour epic like that. So start to finish, you could probably beat the game in a half hour to an hour tops, like absolute maximum tops. And in my time, when I beat the game, even on very easy, I went through, I think, 70 lives.
Damn. Well, actually, I can believe that, because the level that I recall being the most frustrating in that game was the asteroid, because it was just debris on top of debris on top of debris getting in the way of my damn shots. It was driving me crazy. And that is a perfect level example of what you were saying about even if you can hold the button down, the game's like, screw you, buddy. We're just going to make you hit a bunch of things you can't kill.
There was one stage where it was like walls of rocks. I don't know if they're the same asteroids you're talking about, but there was like one vulnerable rock that you could shoot and destroy. And if you're not strong enough, you're not getting through there, no matter how hard you hold that button down.
And then the power-up machine on that stage was a freaking robot that shot lasers on the way down. So I was like, you can't even fucking hit him practically. You got to pretty much follow him down and hit him with bullets after the fact, after he passes you, and then hope you kill him before he dashes off the screen. They started getting really brutal with that, too.
Those are the glory days of the arcade, man. I loved it. I'm such a fan of these old-school shmups. You mentioned Gradius, R-type games. That was my shit growing up.
And I just like the fact that they're on things like this now, because back then I couldn't afford to beat half these damn games.
Seriously, I'd rather drop $8 to beat this game than try to, go through 70 lives on an arcade machine.
Yeah, think of those quarters.
Seriously.
A lot of quarters.
Just ballpark it where you have, 3 lives per quarter?
Yeah, it's not enough. It's not enough.
Add that shit up. Add that shit.
And that's even being generous. In my arcades, usually the dip switch was set to lower. You get 2 lives for a quarter.
And then the other cool thing is, you mentioned in Gradius how you have the power-ups that you could select at the beginning of the game. You're able to choose the pilot you want, which is how fast your ship can move, 3 different guns, 3 different missile types, 3 different rear guns. So there's a lot of variation there to test out and find what you like and to just have fun with. I think for $8, I know some of the Neo Geo games we haven't been the biggest fans of, mostly the fighting games, but I think Zed Blade is definitely worth picking up if you're a shmup fan.
Well, I think one benefit that it does have compared to a lot of the ACA games that we reviewed in the past is that even though, you could say the shooters are a common genre on this system, they are still in their own right different games. Like, you can't say, well, I would recommend Zed Blade, except Zed Blade Omega is going to come out in a month, or Zed Blade Neon was out 2 months ago. No, it's Zed Blade. It's the only one that exists. So you play that one, you buy that one, and you have the entire series of one game.
Yeah.
So in that regard, it makes it a much easier sell.
I do wish they would have kept the Japanese name.
What was the Japanese name?
Ragnarok.
Guess that would have gone along well with the Yggdrasil then, huh?
And the fact that you are part of Operation Ragnarok. I don't know. I have no clue why they named it Zed Blade.
Because that's the name of the one pilot's grandfather who piloted the ship 10 years prior to stop the Yggdrasil Armageddon from taking place in Valhallaverse. That's where all the ships came from, the Valhallaverse.
Clearly.
So, yeah.
Yeah, when I got the email and it was like Zed Blade, I'm like, is this some kind of cool like action game, hack and slap? Oh no, it's a shmup. What the fuck?
Are you playing a rock guitar on top of the ship as you pilot it? No. If only.
But yeah, for $8, I give it a buy it. Sounds like you're giving it a try it. So
yeah, at least a try, which isn't a bad thing in this case. It's just the try is just contingent on if you want one more shooter.
Yeah. Plus, so it sounds like it's tough to compare it right next to Graceful Explosion Machine, but
it genuinely is.
That's how this show works. So I don't know, suck it. I still think Zed Blade's awesome. So if you got $8 and an Xbox One, you can't get Graceful Explosion Machine. So grab Zed Blade instead.
There you go.
How's that?
I think that works.
Anyway, final game to talk about tonight. Final game. It's been a long one so far, and we still have plenty more show to go. West of Loathing, developed and published by Asymmetric. It released August 10th on Steam for $10.99, and iOS releases in the works as well for 2017. Say howdy to West of Loathing, a single-player slapstick comedy adventure role-playing game set in the Wild West of the Kingdom of Loathing universe. Traverse snake-infested gulches, punch skeletons wearing cowboy hats, grapple with demon cows, and investigate a wide variety of disgusting spittoons. Explore a vast open world and encounter a colorful cast of characters, some of whom are good, many of whom are bad, and a few of whom are ugly. Although I will take note that they say a colorful cast of characters when the game is entirely black and white.
Which is hilarious because they do have a colorblind mode for some reason. And when you go scroll down to it, it says, hey, you never know. Like,
does it really?
It seriously does that. I was like, well, I got to put this on now. I never came across the exact thing that would affect it, but I was waiting for some weird joke that says, aren't you glad you turned colorblind mode off for this?
Oh, that's fucking hilarious.
Which is pretty much the entire game. Like this, when you told me there's an RPG related to stick figures, I originally saw it and said, one, I didn't think I was going to like it, but I was like, I can't turn down an RPG that's all done with stick figure people. Come on. That would be stupid of me. So I took it on expecting to come onto this review and trash it. How wrong I was. This game was a title that I want to beat. Like you know, you play games and they'll tell you, hey, this game is like a hilarious game where you walk around the world and you do dumb shit and people do stupid things along with the ride, you know?
Yeah.
But this game, I did that and actually was laughing at my screen on numerous occasions because the writing is clever. The scenarios are just freaking bizarre. Like there was one part early on in the game. Well, first of all, the point is that your character who is trying to go west. That's pretty much the game. In fact, the reason that you're going west, you choose at the beginning of the game while you're talking to your family. It's like, why am I going west? To seek fortune, because I damn well feel like it. You know, it's like weird answers like that. And the 3 classes they let you choose from are Cow Puncher, Bean Slinger, and Snake Oiler. And of course, given that one of my favorite party games is Snake Oil, and I like the idea of, you know, the snake oil salesman, I of course went with Snake Oiler. And it's sort of like alchemist that uses snake venom and snake skin to make things, which is just weird. So you talk to like one of your early family members to tell them you're leaving to go west, and the guy goes, well, before you go, I just want you to take your grandmother's briefcase of snakes with you for the journey. And it is like said in a very straightforward manner, like text wise, and you're just like, okay, you have to use the briefcase of snakes to get some early potion. But literally everything that happens in this game is humorous. Like I can't think of a single point in the game I've come across that was intended to be, you know, taken seriously, and that's fine. So the game has a typical stat and equipment system. So you have like a strength stat, an intelligence stat of sorts, luck, and a couple other stats. And then you have your equipment item, which is like a hat, a pants, shirt, gun, melee weapon, and like 2 accessories. And the main accessory that I wore for way too long is a nasty ring. This is great. I'm not going to say how I got it, but the fact that it's actually called a nasty ring just sells itself.
Was it in a pile of poop?
No.
Wow. Outhouse.
Nope, but there are things that deal with outhouses in this game. So
I would expect nothing less.
you come across a drunk doctor, just gold. You're looking for cows, like fire cows or something like that, who are terrorizing the countryside, and you have to fight them a couple times. I've come across a number of fire cows. You're trying to solve a mystery involving people coming back from the dead. You eventually start out in like this one starter town where you kind of go on a number of quests including getting back the sheriff's jail door and then putting the lock on it because he has neither of those things. And while you're doing all these different quests, all of which are freaking hilarious to get you started with the game, you're also coming across a number of different people. And what ends up happening is before you leave to officially go west, you have to after you resolve all of their quests, you choose one of those people, and they're individual classes with their own skills and stuff. And once you choose them, I don't think you can come back and get anyone else because the game pretty much never lets you go back to that starter town. You go to the official hub town, which is where all the other quests branch off from. So, like, include like wanted posters where you say, find this family. It's worth this much money if you can find this crime family. And you go out into the waste and you seek them out on a different locations that pop up that appear based on where their wanted poster says they're located at. And you go through a series of different, sometimes you go through a series of different like quests, runs, or requirements to get to them. Like, let me think. One might be, this place is haunted. I'm making this up, by the way, because I don't want to tell you anything that actually happens in the game, but the level of absurdity would be, so this place is haunted. You can't enter unless you somehow cleanse the place. So you have to go get, like, holy soap from the local church and then, like, drink water and then eat the soap and then spit all over the floor, and then that will purify the haunted ground or whatever. Like, corny shit like that. It's really funny. In fact, I actually took a couple of screenshots if you ever want to put on the Facebook page or something and be like, this is an example of some of the dialogue you'll have in the game. But homing oats was a thing that I came across in the game. Let me see. You had to it wasn't rob a grave, but you had to like find out like some weird thing about like a creepy cursed doll, and the cursed doll, well, you had to go down and find like a weird altar that had like children's blood in it, and then like, later on in the game will tell you like, well, you did just kind of give children's blood to a cursed doll, you freak of nature. What is wrong with you? Like, it'll actually guilt you in the stuff you did. It's genuinely funny. Like, and honestly, I will say that there's a turn-based combat system in the game. It's not, for what I play at least, it was never difficult, so to speak. But this is one of those games where, like, typically when I play games, I look for challenge. But this is one of those games where I don't think I really care. Like, I just want the humor that's coming out of it. The gameplay is just there to give you some action while you go from one crazy scenario to the next. And the fact that I can take a snake and then throw it at a guy so he bites him and then poisons him is actually pretty freaking funny, too. So I'm not going to beat around on that. There are goblins.
I'm loving the fact that, like, even the screenshots on Steam, like the first one for Sheriff, it just says Sheriff.
Yes! The Sheriff's office. And then you walk in, the guy actually says Sheriff. Like, that's my name or something like that. Like, they play on the fact that the sign says Sheriff. It's just everything about the game is funny. Like, another thing I'll just mention, because holy crap, I hope I don't ruin this game for people, but you, one of those early quests is you have to get a horse to ride out west. So the guy's like, I can sell you a horse if you can find my 4 horses for me. So you have to go out into the wilds and find these 4 horses. And they're all weird horses, like weird types where like one's got like googly eyes and one is a dead horse and stuff like that. And then when you bring all the horses back and it's time to buy one, you can ask the guy about the different horses, and he'll give you descriptions on each horse, and they are fucking hilarious. Like, the normal horse, there's one horse that has nothing special about it, but he's like, tell me more about this horse. Like, it's got 4 legs, a nose, sometimes you can pet it, and you keep drilling down further and further. He's like, look, it's just a horse. It's just a normal horse, okay? There's nothing about this that's special. You're going to buy a normal, adequate horse. You can buy this one. And it's just, again, it's hysterical. Games like this need to happen more often, because I live in a world where yeah, it's fun to save the world sometimes, and it's fun to be puzzled or challenged. But sometimes I just want to fucking laugh. Sometimes I had a really shitty day, and I want to come home and put in a game and just laugh at it. It's almost like TV, like a comedy TV show, but I'm interacting with it, you know? And that kind of game to me is surprisingly rare. Though I admit a part of that may just be because sometimes it's hard to write. It's hard to just outright write a comedic game. You have to be pretty good at the craft to do that.
No.
Which these guys are. I don't know who the guys are that made this game, like the individuals behind it. They know their shit. It's freaking funny.
They are all insane, apparently.
Which works for me. Insanity begets humor.
Oh, my Lord. Well, if anyone out there is interested, it is on Steam for $10.99. It's actually on sale until the 17th for $9.89. It is also on my own personal Steam wish list. My Steam username is JoeCamNet. Feel free to add me and buy the game for me.
Hook him up. Hook him up.
So
do not let the graphics fool you.
I'm sure I already know what you're going to say, but for $11, what is your verdict on this one?
Yeah, I deny it. I don't know what to say. I like the game so much that I can't possibly recommend it to anyone else because I honestly feel like the game must have been written solely for me.
You never know.
If you think you have the humor, if you find humor in things that Pernell would find humor in, you should buy this game because it's genuinely good. Do not let the stick figure graphics fool you. Do not let the black and white fool you. Do not let the fact that the game looks ridiculously simple fool you. That's all part of the humor.
So what's the lesson learned, Pernell?
I'm going to judge books by their cover still, but sometimes that cover is a part of the package. And you're meant to look at the package, give it a weird slant eye, and then go, I'm going to buy this game because the package looks so bland.
Nice.
And you're rewarded for it. It's gold. It's gold.
Game is just straight up ridiculous. Well, Pernell, thank you so much for joining and covering those games with me. Pernell, any final words?
If this is what West of Loathing is like, I would actually be kind of curious to see what East of Loathing is like as well. Because, I don't know, that title kind of messed with me the whole time. Just by virtue of it. I mean, I know it's meant to be Wild West, and then it's this Loathing series, but before I knew that, my original thought was West of Loathing. What the hell are you talking about? Yeah, I want to know. But that's me rambling. I just had a good time for this episode. So.
Are those your final words?
Yes! Oh, well, also, just in general statement, I can curse on this show. Don't be a fucking dick out there, people. Be cool. Just be cool. That's it. That's my final word. Don't be a dick.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for hanging around. I'm joined by some fantastic guests right now. First off, I need to have a tag team partner going into this next interview. And who better than our good friend Cole Martin? Cole, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I have no idea if you were on the show earlier with part of the reviews or not, but why not, right?
I do believe.
Probably. So you've just been hanging around this entire time, but you're not the important part. The important person here is Rafał of Bloober team. Welcome back to the show. How are you doing today?
Hey man, it's good to be back. It's been a while since I been on the air with you guys, but yeah, it's really cool to be back.
Indeed it has. We last had you on to talk about Layers of Fear back when it first hit game preview. That in the meantime, that's hit full release, that's had DLC come out, and you are now here to talk about Bloober team's brand new game, Observer. For the people who don't know what Observer is, give us the sales pitch.
Okay, so Observer is basically a cyberpunk horror game that we have set in this, cyberpunk, of course, dystopia, but we set it in Poland in the year 2084, which is a direct, connected directly to the 1984 Orwell's book. Not based on, but you can find most of the problematics in the book also in Observer. But what is very important with our game is that you can literally hack into other people's minds and memories in the game and go through them like you would walk a character in any other given game and see what that person saw and probably even felt a little bit. So it's a game about hacking minds and solving this weird mystery of sorts, I'd say. It will definitely have you puzzled for a while. And yeah, I don't want to spoil too much. Just, in a few days you will be able to play it.
Indeed.
So let's keep it at that.
How do we go from... Sorry, Joe. I interrupted you. I'm excited to ask questions today. Yay! And I'm going to go ahead.
Go ahead. It's all you.
From the vintage art style of Layers of Fear into such a futuristic game like Observer?
We're actually looking for a cool environment that we can set the game up. And there's a lot of cyberpunk fans here in Bloober team. So once the idea came up that we can set the game in a cyberpunk environment, we were like, it's a great idea. Let's think about ways how we can do the game to feel that is our own. And, then came the idea of mind hacking, then came the idea of setting this, Eastern European cyberpunk world that would be easily distinguished from what you've seen in Japanese anime like Akira or Ghost in the Shell, but also a little bit different from what you would see from American cyberpunk, which is, Blade Runner, Johnny Mnemonic, and all those really cool movies from the end of the 80s and the beginning of the 90s. So basically, the idea for the environment was to kind of get a breather from that Victorian era and all those vintage decor and stuff. So it was kind of based on a whim, like someone at some point threw an idea that we can make a cyberpunk game, and that was the end of the discussion. At that point, so we knew that we want to do that game.
It's kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping a piece sticks.
Yeah, this is definitely stuck.
It's just spaghetti on the wall. Hey, that's cyberpunk spaghetti. Let's go.
So does cyberpunk spaghetti have like spaghetti mohawks and monocles? I'm not sure who would answer that question. I don't know if the game creators would answer that, or if Cole, who created the whole concept of cyberpunk spaghetti.
I'd say that the spaghetti has neural implants and eye prosthetics.
Oh my god.
What kind of research has gone into the types of implants and prosthetics that are used in the characters? How much of it is like rooted in reality we have today versus just being entirely fantastical?
I'd say actually a lot. Like the vision we had for the game is to basically set this from the perspective a person would have in the 80s, like in the turn of the 80s and 90s. So it's kind of a retro cyberpunk. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the tech that's in the game is kind of based on not only what people back then figured out when thinking about science fiction and thinking about cyberpunk specifically, but also on the advancements that we made since then to this time. So, of course, obviously there are sci-fi stuff in there. So like mind hacking we are not there yet. But a lot of scientific work is going on with brain studies and basically implants. You have people with leg implants running on the Olympics, and all these war veterans who have arm prosthetics that can basically work as a normal hand right now, a normal limb. So I think we're very near what we imagine in the game. However, it's not a future that I'd like to live in. It's a very dark future. We had these two huge devastating events in the game prior to what's happening in Observer. So one was this huge pandemic of a virus, and it's called the nanophage. So it was basically a virus that attacked simultaneously your electronic prosthetics. Like you would have a computer virus, but at the same time it attacked biological tissues. So there was no cure was ever found, and you just had to undergo a very violent and not too comfortable operations to actually get your either limbs or whatever removed from your body, and a lot of people didn't survive this. And then came the war. The game is called the Great Decimation, which was another global war. So after that, like, there were no nations to basically rule the world. They were too weak. So the megacorps came in, and the game is set, as I said, in 2084, and it's set in Poland. So the ruling party per se there is Chiron, which is a megacorp, basically having everything under its control, from food processing to tech and almost everything. Like they basically say jump, and you jump. If you don't jump, then you have trouble.
Nice. I thought Cole was going to follow up with something there.
I thought I'd give you a chance. I interrupted you earlier, and I've already spouted off too in the meantime. So, I don't want to hog the dev or anything.
I mean, you're allowed. I do this all the time. I'm curious to know what it was like going from a very psychological game such as Layers of Fear, moving into something that's more based, I wouldn't say in reality, given this pandemic and the whole scenario isn't really, something that's happening today, but it's a more real threat in the game as opposed to the very psychological disturbances of Layers of Fear. So how was it transitioning to a more real world style scenario?
Okay, so it's a complex question, and you will get a very complex answer to that. So I'd say that Observer is still a very psychological game. Like, it has a lot of symbolism in it. It's like very robust when it comes to the psychology aspect of humans, and basically how they interact with technology today, and where it can lead them, in the near future. So in that sense, the game is still very, very, psychological. So we are not strafing too far from Layers of Fear in that respect. Of course, it's more kind of, unnatural. Like it's a distant future, maybe not so distant, but still it's based on our, dark and greedy imagination of how the world can look like in 50 years or whatnot. But the idea we have for our games in Bloober team is that what we did is we kind of invented a new subgenre that kind of defines what we want to do with games. We call it the hidden horror, and basically it has only two main principles. First of all, it needs to have a subject, and this subject needs to be a very down to earth, connected to society and psychology. So with Layers of Fear, we the idea was to have this kind of fight between whether your family life is more important to you or your ambitions when it comes to work take precedence. So in Layers of Fear, if you remember, like you had to make those choices, and it kind of gave you an ending depending on that. So you had to stop by and ponder on what was actually going on in the game. What do I need to do? Why do I need to do it to get that one ending that I want to see? And in Observer, we are tackling the subject of the boundaries of humanity, which is a kind of an open-ended question. For some, it will be how technology can ruin our lives in a way, or how can it be overused, misused, how people, can take advantage of having all those augmented people, and, how to prey on the weak if they don't have those augmentations and all that kind of stuff. And the other aspect is actually, like all of the horror games, and basically horror as a genre, it's all about the cathartic experience. So you watch, play, or read horror works just to, tackle your fears in a way. It's kind of an antidote for fear, like vaccination for fear. And it's good for you. But, we wanted to push it a step further. So what we are adding is a 2.0 at the end of Catharsis. And we would like people, after playing our games, to actually ponder on for a second and figure out what would they do in those kind of situations, how it would change their lives in such situations. And it's not all based on sci-fi dystopia. Like most of the problems in the game are quite down to earth, I'd say. Like nowadays we have a lot of people in lower classes, I'd say, like people who don't earn a shitload of money or don't have a celebrity status or whatnot, like, regular normal people. And there are also those poorer people who basically in some countries have zero laws, and they can, they don't have health insurance and whatnot. So we have this dystopia of the future, but the problems are basically the same. The one thing that kind of in the game that's sci-fi in a sense is that you actually play a person who can hack into other people's minds, and it's also a problematic future. Like, what would you do if you knew that you couldn't hold any secrets? If the corporation wanted some information from you, they could literally go into your head and dig every secret you had, every mystery that you withhold or whatnot. And by doing that, they would see, a lot of your personal life. It's like going into someone else's brain is not, about, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to take that info and I'm going to leave your head now. Like if you jump into someone's mind, you literally have to find what you are looking for, and it will take you through all those memories that you don't need as a detective or interrogator. The pronunciation is bad there. But yeah, what's important here is that you see their personal life, and it's morally ambiguous, to say at least. So there will be moments like that when we hope that while you play the game, you will actually think about, why do I think, all those personal memories. Like, it's basically because of that. You cannot find what you are looking for by straightly, plugging into someone. You need to see a lot of other footage, if you will, to actually get there. So there's a lot of questions like that in the game, and hopefully a lot of people will find all those different questions, excuse me, that I would want to ask other people. How would they behave in such a situation? And obviously, how would, they as players who witnessed it and experienced it, how they would, tackle this problem in their real lives, basically.
Do you think that's a scenario that we might be closer to in reality than we think, with, hacking into someone's brain or tapping into someone's memories? We already have stuff like lie detector tests and, truth serums, as people like to call them. I just like to call it alcohol because that shit'll make you say anything. Do you think we're actually, as a society, close to the point where we could just get into someone's brain and go through their history and their life?
I would say that we are closer than we think. Like, think about...
Do you know something we don't?
No, just seriously, think about social media. Like, we post a lot of personal stuff. And basically, if you, know how to get around, like, you can basically befriend almost anyone on Facebook who's not cautious. And then or on Twitter, or whatever, you can basically go through their thoughts in that sense, like reading their comments, reading their posts, looking at their, pictures, what they share. You can know a lot about a person if you go through their profiles. And it's not really that hard to do that. Of course, there are cautious people, and that's great. Like, people who don't post anything that comes into their mind, or they don't befriend everyone. But social media right now is like the best way to get info on people, and we do it of our own free will. So we are not that far from, this very sci-fi dystopian futures where there is no privacy. And we had all those huge political scandals with, tapping into phones of regular people, scanning for, info while getting everything else. Like, of course, they tag, for instance, words like, terrorism or bombs or whatnot, but they can hear everything. And like, if you stop for a second and think about it, like, you have zero privacy right now. And that's something that's been going on for years, and it's unlikely to stop, whatever the people say, the government say, the megacorps say right now. Like, Google has a lot of info on you, and of course they don't want to share it with anyone. It's like, but you never know. Like, there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there into which I don't want to delve too much. But if you think about it, like, there's a lot of info on you right now. The privacy is, of course, one of the main societal questions right now, how we want to deal with that and how we live in the 21st century without being exposed too much. But those questions are here, and you can basically enter someone else's mind by going through their social media or whatnot. So in that sense, I would say we're almost there. But when it comes to literal tech and plugging into someone else's mind, I think we're quite far from that yet.
This really is the TMI generation, just too much info from everybody all the time.
There's an episode, I think it's called The White Rabbit Project, is what it's on Netflix. It was the three guys from Mythbusters.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
One of the episodes, like, they were trying to decide what their superpowers would be, and if they were actually possible in the real world. And I can't remember the girl's name.
Carrie.
She wanted mind control, and so they actually found somebody that had been working on a device, and they were able to hook her up, and Tori, the guy with the goatee, they hooked him up, and they sat at a dinner table, and between the two devices being hooked to the two different people, if she moved her hand, his hand went flying. And
I saw that. That was funny as hell.
Yeah, it was funny, but when you think about it, you think that's a small step to a very big problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually. I've seen that episode as well. She basically hooked up to a cockroach, if I remember correctly, and she could steer that cockroach. So with a smartphone, like, yeah, we're getting there, I guess.
We are slowly just turning into puppets, I guess. What would you do if somebody had control over you?
Oh, I think I wouldn't do too much because I wouldn't have control, right?
True. What would your thought process be? Like, if your body just started doing things uncontrollably, or you started saying or doing things that, like, you knew you couldn't stop yourself from doing because some outside force was the one doing it. Like, what could you do in that scenario? What could you think? That's a scary thing to ponder.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you know, if you lose control over what you do, over what you think, and basically over your body, you're kind of, you know, in this very dark place. You don't feel that you have control over anything. And if you think about it, like, a lot of mental problems that people are having are basically because of that. When they feel they don't have any power or control over their lives. People who work in, you know, corporate health, you know, being in front of a monitor for 11 or 12 hours and just, you know, writing stuff in spreadsheets, like, they think they lost their lives. They don't have too much happiness. And, you know, they started to have all those kind of mental problems. They are bummed up over their lives. And, you know, this is how it starts. So there's a lot of people who basically are very healthy but are unhappy because their lives kind of slipped from what they imagined their lives would be. And in that regard, we, like almost everybody, like me, you probably, and almost anyone, kind of lost control over their lives at some point. So if you go back to those memories, they are probably not, you know, too happy memories. So yeah, it's a very, very scary thing to actually imagine. But, you know, our lives are made up like that. We not always have control over everything, and people who want to control everything are, you know, not the best people to hang around with. So, you know, this is life. Like, we have to deal with it. So
this has become a very philosophical and deep conversation. This is unique for the show.
Yeah, that's what you get by talking to us, man.
I love it. You guys are just, you know how to fuck with people's minds, and I love it. Like, I'm Layers of Fear, I couldn't sleep after playing that, and now after the little bit of time I got to spend with Observer so far, because my PC is hot garbage, like, I'm scared to go to apartment buildings anymore. I'm just scared to go to an apartment complex and see some dude at the front of the building with, like, a mechanical face and only one arm, and the other's just like a robotic skeleton arm, and some weird robot janitor is going to follow me somewhere.
But the cyborg janitor dude, he has a really sad story. He does. Like, and that leads me to my next question. How do you develop the characters and know that they're in these shitty situations and not, like, have an attachment to want to see them get to some, you know, happily ever after, even when they're just, like, supposed to be a minor character? Like, do you develop that attachment and you're like, no, we gotta save Janus, you know, we have to make sure Janus survives, or are you like, nah, he's just a janitor, bye guy?
I would say that most of our games are very down to earth. apart from the kind of fantastic settings, whether it's a cyberpunk setting in Observer or that Victorian mansion in Layers of Fear. But the problems and how people approach life are very down to earth. So in Observer, you play this neural detective called Don Lazarski. He's not a superhero. He's basically what he has. He has the Dream Eater device that enables him to hack into other people's minds, but he has no other power. Like, he's a regular person. That's his job is to actually go into someone else's minds. So he's like, not that far from a janitor even. Like, a janitor has his own job, his own problems. So most of our characters are those down-to-earth people that, meet other people like that, like people with problems, people with hopes, people, regular people, like no superpowers, no saving the world, not too many happy endings, etc. So we want to keep the games that we make quite realistic in that sense, so that people who play them actually have a way to attach to them in a way. Like a short anecdote to that, like after Layers of Fear, I literally got some emails and correspondence of people who actually there was definitely this one girl with whom I was speaking, and she said that after playing Layers of Fear, she understood why her husband left her, because he was an artist, and she couldn't get over with that for 10 years or whatnot, if I remember correctly. And after playing Layers of Fear, she understood that he just had a different drive in life. He wanted to create, astonishing art, and it's basically his main goal in life. It wasn't family life, which she wanted probably. But yeah, that's something like people playing Layers of Fear could, envision themselves in those situations. There were people who actually experienced those kind of moments in their life. So, that's something that we want to do with Observer as well. We want to, maybe shed a light on all those shades of gray that are between white and black. Like, people who you see that are very friendly to you, and you're happy around them, then they might be sociopaths, like in the evenings or whatnot.
Does that mean Janice isn't always going to be nice? Does Janice turn on me? No.
Janice has a lot of history, I'd say that. And if you talk to him in the game a lot, then you will kind of find out what his story is, and it's not the happiest of stories.
You can snoop through his computer, too.
Yeah. And there's a lot of info on people that you can find in the game. You can read through their emails. You can find, them conversating about very down-to-earth items or events, but they tell you a lot about that people. So it's something that we wanted to show, basically, how life would change or not change in that regard in the near future.
That is one of the interesting things that I experienced when I was playing it, was that even though this is this futuristic dystopia and everything is doom and gloom and grim appearing, when you're snooping through these people's lives and you're seeing, you're experiencing their memories, or you're seeing their emails or whatever documents are on, about them, you discover that despite all the things that are different in their world, they're still very similar to people you would meet every day right now. They still have a lot of the same, relationship problems, or, hey, my TV got cut off and I'm bored. What do I do now? Kind of problems. But
that's basically
down there.
How would society look? Like, we always had those, down-to-earth problems. If you're even if you're a celebrity, you have very down-to-earth problems as well. You kind of think about it in different ways, I guess. Like, I need to go shopping, but it's not the question whether I want to go because I need food, or I have food but I would like to eat something else, and I kind of don't want to go because I'm lazy. They're probably thinking about that don't want to go because there are paparazzi sitting, in their garden just wanting to take some photos. But those are still very down-to-earth problems, and we always had those problems. We are living our lives, and we are living in these very small worlds that we have, going on, like with a bunch of our friends and coworkers or whatnot. We are not, very global people, I'd say. Like, we can have friends all around the world, but we have this very small world that we are living in every day. And it was always like that, and probably will always be.
I read an article once that called that the monkey sphere, because, like, in tests, monkeys could only remember, like, 15 or 20 so people, or other monkeys that they interacted with. And so people being, obviously, primates as well, we only have like a certain number of people that we can actually like keep in our sphere that we remember regularly. They called it the monkey sphere.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know about
weird
it.
Sorry. But,
yeah, you mentioned like real worlds and real problems. I really did appreciate all the attention to detail and like the computers and just the things around the world that just feel like little touches of reality. Was it fun creating like those emails that were sent or those documents that are on the computers that just give you a look into the lives of these people?
I would probably need to ask our writer about that, how fun he had doing that. But yeah, I think it's like you don't have to think too much about it. Like, you write emails every day, and you can figure out how people who want something would, write an email about that. So if they want it very, very much, they will be, very, very persuasive, or at least will try to please you or threaten you. So it's like, I think it wasn't a hard task. There's enough of archetypes that you can draw from and make up those characters. But what we wanted to do is to, as you said, and as I said previously also, that keep it very down to earth. So these are not people that they have to solve world problems, for instance. They're just regular people like
They're
your
just
neighbor.
trying to get through their day and get through their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So probably it wasn't, a simple task of sitting in front of a PC and writing all those characters. You had to, think how they would think. But it's also, we have those same problems every day. So it wasn't, writing a new physics books or whatnot. So, but yeah, it definitely, in the end, it's, I'm very happy how the game looks, and, the feeling of this everyday life living is very, I think it's very, I would say that it tackles a wide range of people being down to earth, and also, is very comprehensive on how society looks at the moment, and it, as I said, probably won't change in the near future as well.
I even like the fact that there's so much detail in the game, and it gives you such a sense of real life that even the people in the game, they relax through video games. There's a little mini computer game in the game that if you're getting too freaked out with the game, you could just relax and play a couple of levels and kill some snakes and get some coins.
Yeah, actually, the game is called With Fire and Sword Spiders, right? And it's direct
spiders, not snakes. That's it.
Spiders, yeah, spiders. And it's a direct reference, like it's a eye winking to the Polish players. Basically, we have a lecture, like a school lecture, and one of the most important books written by Polish authors in history. It's called, basically can be translated into English to With Fire and Sword. So there's a lot of eye winking to people from Poland and people from the Eastern European countries that will probably find all those Easter eggs that we have hid in the game.
Are there a lot hidden in there?
Yeah, I'd say there's a lot, and quite unexpectedly, things that we thought people would never find were actually discovered even during our internal external beta tests of the game. Like, we were very amused of how people discovered all of that stuff. But to for people outside from this part of the world, meaning Eastern Europe and most specifically Poland, those items will kind of be, I wouldn't say exotic, but kind of interesting in that way, like something that you wouldn't expect, for instance, in someone's room will be there, and people in Poland see, oh damn, I know what's it all about. There was a book by that Polish writer in the 18th century that wrote it, and it's very cool that it's in there. We actually there's a lot of that stuff. So the philosophy around that was to once we wanted to set the game in Poland, which is uncanny in the video gaming industry, then we wanted to give people from here to have something to be familiar with, and also giving people from the Western countries and from the US something kind of I don't know if exotic is a good word, but something definitely different that they would appreciate for the difference itself.
Did you model any of the locations in the game after real world locations that you're familiar with?
Basically, the whole tenement building in the game is based on a real tenement building in Krakow in Poland. And the GPS location that is shown at the very beginning of the game is the exact location of that spot.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. That's a fun little touch to the game, I guess. So if someone followed those coordinates exactly, they would run into pretty much the same building that's in the game?
Yep. You can go, you can go to Google Maps and actually type down the GPS location, and you can see how the building looks outside in real world, like even now.
Oh, man.
All right, Joe, road trip. Bitch, we're going to Poland.
There's also a GPS location, if I recall correctly, of where our offices are in Krakow. So you can discover a lot if you want to dig into the game.
It's the little touches that make it fun. So I'm curious to know, Layers of Fear went through like an early access and a game preview release where Observer is just going straight to full release. What kind of differences are there in development between the two different routes for release?
Well, with Layers of Fear, what early access gave us is that basically we had a ton of feedback of people playing the game, of what people discussed, on Steam forums, for instance. And we could work with that. We could watch how people played on YouTube, for instance, and see if the level design works as it should. But what was tricky about that is that, having a single-player game in early access is kind of risky, because what kind of incentive you will have after release for those people to actually play the game again. So what we did, we actually cut the ending out. We changed a lot of, level topography, and we changed what you can find in the game after launch. So we basically gave that incentive to people, but at the same time, we had tons of feedback on how to refine the game before it launches. With Observer, we were kind of, experienced with how people played Layers of Fear, and we could expect and predict a lot more from them, and how would they behave in certain situations. So we didn't feel that going to early access was all that necessary this time. And, the game is way, way bigger than Layers of Fear was. So going to early access and, changing the game after it launches just to make that incentive for those people would be a very huge hassle for us. It would mean a lot of, game-changing changes, again, in the game to actually make that happen. So this time around, we decided to just finish up the game and show it to the world.
Makes sense. You mentioned the Observer is a larger game than Layers of Fear. How much bigger?
Damn it, Joe, you stole my question.
Ha, suck it. My show.
Way, way bigger. If you play slowly the game, I think it should basically last around 7 to 8 hours, even more. We had a preview for PC Gamer a week back or so, and we had an embargo on the games, 2/3 of the game in length, and it actually took them 10 hours to get there. So if you compare that with Layers of Fear, you can see how bigger Observer is than Layers was.
That is very interesting. I'm curious to see how long it would take me to get through it, especially because I have issues with motion sickness, and some of the moving around in the building just kind of got to me a bit. So I had to take breaks every now and then and rest up and kill some spiders.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the game is very glitchy, I'd say. So, there's a lot of stuff happening, but we thought it was necessary to actually make this world look alive in a way and have, this distinct cyberpunk theme to it. But yeah, we hopefully managed to make it so that people with, different problems with, as you said, with issues that you have, for instance, shouldn't be, too much for them to stop playing. Hopefully that's the case. One of our designers actually has motion sickness as well, and she basically could play the game and was okay for her. So hopefully it will all be good.
Well, I know after I would play for a while, I would start to feel a little bit nauseous and then take a break, come back, and then I'm feeling fine again. So it's just something that I personally just need to get used to. So it happens with a bunch of games for me. I deal with it. I'm a big boy.
Okay.
I have to ask for the achievement horse. I know there's an embargo and everything, but can you tell us anything about the achievements that we would expect on the Xbox?
Oh, there's a lot of
That's a loaded one.
Yeah, that's the moment when I type that I'm uncomfortable with the question.
I'm very sorry.
Yeah,
I had to do it. I know if I didn't, somebody in chat might.
True.
No, but to be honest, I think it's all good. There's a ton of achievements to unlock. I probably cannot go into details because not only with the embargo and stuff, but definitely from the spoiler alert perspective. But yeah,
So
yeah,
expect
they
a lot
are
of
there.
story-related ones.
Yeah, they are there. Most are. There's a lot of connected to the story. There's a bunch of different things that we are kind of not showing yet with the game, and a lot of people probably think that's a very cool thing to see. So there will be. I'm gonna kind of spoil it for you, or at least hint something like there will be high scores. In achievements, so I'm gonna leave it at that.
Scores. That is what is there for scores in the game? Now you have me curious. I'm wondering what else is tucked away
And
in
now
the
you
game
have
further
to
in.
play the game.
Oh, you guys and your surprises. You always gotta tuck some weird stuff in there. Are there any fun Easter egg related achievements in the game? Like if you explore in a certain area of the building or do very deliberate things in the game to trigger?
Difficult
He's
question.
uncomfortable, Joe.
Bad question.
I don't think so. Although I don't want to. To be honest, I'm not really sure. I don't remember at this time the specifics of all the achievements there. I think it will have to be a mystery until the game releases.
Well, as the time that we're recording this, we are a week away from launch. Is there at all a lot of excitement at the Bloober team offices about this game?
Oh, definitely. Like, we cannot wait to see how people play the game and what they have to tell us about it. Like, Observer is a kind of huge tribute to all of the cyberpunk work out there, which in fact is why we hired Rutger Hauer to actually, play as Dan Lazarski. So, you have this iconic cyberpunk actor that played Ray Batty in Blade Runner. So he's there and he's playing his role. We have a Polish actor that's called Arkadiusz Jakubik, who is one of the most famous Polish actors right now. So they've been both starring in the game, so it's really, really cool. So yeah, like there's a ton of, this cyberpunk love in the game, and people who like this setting will find a lot of, Easter eggs and references. And, we cannot wait just to show you everything that we have in store for Observer.
I'm just very happy that you're here to handle the Polish names, because I could say Rutger Hauer, but that other name was like way out of my league.
Yeah, Polish language is not the easiest one in the bunch.
There's so many different dialects and accents in the world that it's language is so weird. It blows my mind how many different people we talk to from around the globe and different way to pronounce things, and even the most basic names in other languages are pronounced so much differently that it's unique. It's weird. It shows what kind of a weird world we're all in.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, man. Well, I know we've been chatting for a while. Cole, did you have any other questions that you wanted to ask?
I don't think so. I think I'm good.
Nice. Well, I guess we could wrap this up. I don't want to take up all of your day. Observer is releasing...
we can take up his whole day. Wouldn't be the first time.
I mean, I'm guessing you have stuff to do. You're a week from launch. I'm guessing that things are kind of busy around the office.
Yeah, they are. Definitely.
What do you do in final week to launch? Like, what needs to be done now?
Like, most of all, like, to keep the knowledge that the game is coming out in, in the press, in the media outlets, like, in the minds of people who want to play games. So that's my role. Like, that's what I do right now. But also, it's like, it's always, tweaking and thinking about how the launch will go, preparing for any, unexpected things that might happen in launch. So there's a lot of work to do. There's also some, post-mortem talks about the production of the game. So, just hammering out the experiences we had with doing this game, how we can expand on those ideas that we had with future projects. So, the work never stops. But basically, what's the most important, thing to do around here right now is actually wait and, read the first previews and see how the first people playing the game, how they played it, what do they have to say about the game. It's a very, very cool time for us, but also very scary. You never know how the game will be perceived by people, but hopefully, from what we've seen right now, the game, I think, kind of clicks with a lot of people. So we are very hopeful that it will be a great launch and that we will have our say in, the huge cyberpunk and horror genre that has been developing for years now.
I'm imagining that there's like a whiteboard in the office, excuse me, and it says like to do, and number 1 is like answer emails. Number 2, interview with, some bums with a podcast. Number 3, panic. Number 4, read emails.
Yeah, something like that. Like it's not a very not realistic vision of how it goes around here right now.
Panic is clearly up one.
Right.
Panic is more important than this show.
It's not panic yet, but we're waiting. We're definitely waiting in anticipation of how it all goes. We really, really want to show what we have in store for everyone who wants to play the game, and we cannot wait to discuss the game with people on the forums and see what people think and say about the game. It's, the anticipation is killing us right now.
No, a week out from launch, have you heard any any early preview buzz or any rumblings from forums of people who may have had some time with the game early?
Yeah, there's a ton of people who, seen the game either on events that we've been going to, and the reception was really, really cool. There's a bunch of, very select YouTubers who have been playing the game even now, and they can show quite a lot of the game. So, we've been looking how they are playing, what they have to say, and most of that, is very, very positive. So, yeah, the momentum is definitely here, and hopefully it will, spread like a virus, like the nanophage.
Is there a lot of screaming and cursing in the people's streams from people playing it and getting scared?
Relatively, I'd say less than with Layers of Fear. People were very very scared of playing Layers of Fear at some points. Here, I think they it's a kind of uneasiness that has the main that's the main scare factor here, is that the game makes you not want to go further.
Just an overall sense of dread.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something like that. So we're definitely having less of in-your-face jump scares, but the atmosphere from Layers of Fear is definitely in observers. So you play 10 minutes in, and your imagination starts to work, and every shadow around every corner is kind of a antagonist closing on you, even if it's just a regular corridor there. So
how do you fine-tune a game to the point where it is scary enough that people don't want to walk down that hallway, but the game is good enough that they really want to walk down that hallway?
Those are very private tips and tricks for us. We cannot
You're making them uneasy again, Joe.
We cannot show you our poker hand right here, because
if your games are going to make me uneasy, my questions have to make you uneasy, right?
So is Gamescom next week?
Gamescom?
It's
in 2 weeks.
Are you guys going to be there?
Yes, we will be there.
Very nice.
Cole, are you going to be there?
Fuck no. I don't ever get to leave Redneck Land.
Us Americans, we can't afford a trip over to Germany. Oh, man. So, yeah, Observer releases August 15th. Where can people buy it, and how much is it going to cost them?
It's going to cost them $29.99, and they will be able to buy it digitally through Steam and through, console shops, whether it's the PlayStation Store or the Xbox Marketplace.
Have you guys had any discussions about getting this game or Layers of Fear on the Switch, perhaps?
I knew that was coming.
Hey, we have a lot of Switch owners in our audience, so I've got to ask for them.
I'm gonna respond to that in a way not to answer anything. So I'm gonna just say that we are doing R&D all the time, and when we have something to announce, we will announce it.
Sounds good. That's a good way to dodge the question. So
Get shot down, Joe.
hey, it's all about attempting to read between the lines and hoping that you're reading it right. But Rafał, thank you so much for joining the show today and coming to chat with us about Observer. The game is creepy as hell, and I can't wait to play it more. And I'm sure Cole, you'll probably have a review for us eventually, right?
Most likely.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about, or anything else you wanted to get out there before we let you go?
I think that a short message to all the gamers out there. So if you people are scared of horror games, try our games. It will give you a very good experience without having all those in-your-face jump scares, and it's all about the atmosphere. So I'm not telling this because I want to, sell you the game. I'm telling you this because we had a lot of people playing Layers of Fear, which was their first horror in their whole lives because they were scared of playing horror games, and now they are, playing everything horror-related. So if you are afraid of Layers of Fear, try Observer. If you love cyberpunk, if you love sci-fi, if you love horror, this is the game for you this year. Seriously, guys.
That's a pretty good badge of honor that people who have been too scared to play horror games got into horror games because of your horror game.
Yeah, and that's kind of tricky for me, to be honest. Before I, started working in the company, I wasn't too huge of a fan of horror myself. And it was, kind of coincidental that I ended up here. And right now I'm playing Resident Evil 7 and laughing my lungs out. It's such a great, game with this, very cliche, gory kind of setting. It's really, really cool. But I needed that first trigger, and, coming here was basically that for me. It was really, really an awesome experience. That's why I'm also talking here about it. But one other thing, a message to the fans, is that we love you guys. The feedback you are giving us, something that I'm very, very proud of our community, dating back even to the early access times of Layers of Fear, was that almost 90 or even 95% of feedback that we are giving was very good critical feedback with arguments for or against whatever they were talking about. But it was very educational for us. We could literally talk about the problems that the community problems or ideas that the community actually given us, which is really, really superb for us. Seriously, the community we had for Layers of Fear was awesome. And from what I've been, talking with people about Observer, it's the same thing. So thank you guys for that. Seriously, you're the best bunch of them all.
We're okay, I guess.
Thank you for making an awesome game.
Yes.
Awesome games.
Thank you for making the awesome games. Thank you for scaring the shit out of us. That is it for this episode. Do you have any final words to end the show?
What would you do if your fears were hacked? I'm gonna leave you with a question.
I'd probably shit myself.